Chapter 221. The embroidered uniform guard was bound to shock the entire imperial city tonight. A few days after the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor issued the decree to establish the embroidered uniform guard, the embroidered uniform guard had already killed the city guard army commander, Xuelu. The actions of the embroidered uniform guard caused many people in the imperial city to tremble with fear. These people were practically all people that had enmity with Duanling Tian. Third Prince Estate. Bang. Within the building at the center of the lake, the third prince who just heard his servant's report had an extremely gloomy expression, and the wine cup in his hand was smashed into pieces. This caused some of the young geniuses present to be unable to help but tremble with fear. Everyone, let's disperse for today. Let's meet again next time. The third prince took a deep breath before sending off the guests. After all the young geniuses present left, the third prince's eyes flashed with a cold light that was awe-inspiring. Since I'm already like fire and water with him, there's no need for me to be courteous with him. I must annihilate his arrogance. Go prepare, I'll enter the imperial palace to see Imperial Father tomorrow morning. Yes. The servant received his orders and left. Duanling Tian, do you really think that you can be unbridled just because you've made a small contribution? Let me see how Imperial Father will punish you. The third prince's voice seemed as if it came from the depths of hell, and it was incomparably icy cold. Fifth Prince Estate. Within the pergola, the white-browed old man respectfully reported to the fifth prince about the matter that gave rise to much discussion outside. What? That Duanling Tian actually led the embroidered uniform guard under him to kill Xuelu? The fifth prince was shocked as well, and then his face sank. He really has no scruples and is perverse. Your Highness, I heard that the person that acted was an embroidered uniform guard under him, and that embroidered uniform guard ought to be in existence at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. The white-browed old man's voice contained slight fear. Looks like the divine might Marquis still concerned about the friendship he had with Duan Ruffing all those years ago. He's actually so generous and even sent a 9th level nascent soul stage martial artist to order around Duanling Tian. The fifth prince's eyes flickered with coldness, and his tone was low and suppressed. Your Highness, what should we do now? The white-browed old man asked. He didn't have to do anything now. Early in the morning tomorrow, I will enter the palace to see my father. This Duanling Tian is too bold. He even dared to kill the commander of the city guards. Tomorrow, my father will definitely remove him from his position as the commander of the embroidered uniform guard. The fifth prince waved his sleeves and said coldly, Your Highness is wise. The white-browed old man nodded. Prime Minister manner. Guyu Ting sat in front of the stone table in the front yard, quietly savoring the fragrant tea. In next to no time, a hasty figure whistled in and said respectfully, Prime Minister, the embroidered uniform guards commander Duanling Tian led the embroidered uniform guards under his command to kill the city guard army's commander Xuelu. Xuelu? Guyu Ting raised his eyebrows. He's just a boorish man. However, this Xuelu's father is not simple. As Guyu Ting muttered to himself, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The next day, Duanling Tian had just arrived at the embroidered uniform guard's residence when he was summoned into the imperial palace. It was still that magnificent palace. Duanling Tian walked in and noticed that besides the emperor who sat on the golden throne and Prime Minister Guyu Ting who stood at the side, there were two more people standing at the side. Duanling Tian wasn't unfamiliar with these two people. Third prince, fifth prince. Although he guessed that the reason the emperor summoned him into the palace was probably because of what happened last night, he never imagined that the third prince and fifth prince, who were usually at loggerheads with each other, would actually unite together for him. Looks like his face was quite big. Greetings, Your Majesty. Duanling Tian looked at the emperor and lightly nodded. Presumptuous. The third prince and fifth prince's faces went grim as they berated. Presumptuous. Duanling Tian looked at the two of them and lightly smiled. Princes, how have I been presumptuous? Duanling Tian, you didn't kneel when you saw His Majesty the Emperor. Isn't that presumptuous? The third prince said in a deep voice. Not kneeling when you see His Majesty the Emperor is a great disrespect. Duanling Tian, do you know your crime? The fifth prince followed along and added insult to injury. Duanling Tian paid no attention to their words and looked at the emperor instead. Alright, both of you brothers, shut up. The emperor spoke. Imperial Father. The third prince and fifth prince were stunned as they looked at the emperor with a puzzled expression. The emperor said indifferently, I've already promised Commander Duan that if he sees me in the future, he can be exempted from kneeling. Both of you don't have to make a fuss over nothing. Exempted from kneeling? The third prince and fifth prince's pupils constricted, and their faces were filled with astonishment. They never thought that their imperial father would treat Duan Lingtian so generously. However, when they thought of Duan Lingtian's actions yesterday, their hearts calmed down. As far as they were concerned, just yesterday's matter was sufficient to make Duan Lingtian fall from heaven to hell, and he would never be able to rise again. Alright, now that Commander Duan has arrived, what do the two of you have to say? The emperor looked at the third prince and fifth prince as he asked indifferently. Imperial father, this Duan Lingtian obtained your favor and was even conferred the title of Commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard by you. He ought to set an example and serve our imperial family. But who knew that at dusk yesterday he actually went mad and barged into the city guard army's campsite and killed Commander Xuelu? The third prince had an enraged expression. Imperial father, Commander Xuelu is a pillar of the country, but he died at the hands of this ignorant kid. I hope Imperial father can uphold justice for Commander Xuelu. Yes, Imperial father. Duan Lingtian killed Commander Xuelu, and his crime is extremely heinous. This son hopes that Imperial father can remove him from the position of Commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard and heavily punish him as a warning to others. The fifth prince cooperated and pleaded. From the beginning until the end, Duan Lingtian had a carefree expression, as if he utterly didn't take the matter before him to heart. In reality, he indeed didn't take the matter before him to heart. To him, this was only a farce. Commander Duan, what's going on? The emperor's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian. When he saw the emperor's calm gaze, Duan Lingtian understood that the emperor absolutely didn't just find out about this matter, and probably already found out last night. Now he was only putting on an act before the third prince and fifth prince. The emperor's gaze seemed to contain a trace of meaning mixed within. Duan Lingtian saw through what this trace of meaning meant, and the emperor hoped that he would give him a way out. Although it was impossible for the emperor to punish him for the sake of the antidote that only he could refine. But the emperor was the emperor after all and possessed supreme dignity. Now the emperor needed a way out. Your Majesty. Duan Lingtian gave the emperor an understanding gaze, then slowly said, the rift between me and Xuelu was all because of his son, Xuelang. I presume your Majesty has heard of it? However, your Majesty, you don't know that nearly 5 months ago, when I accompanied the Crimson WRM army to leave the imperial city and head to the northwest border, there was a person who intended to kill me. I can imagine that if that person had succeeded, I wouldn't have been able to cooperate with the border army and the Crimson WRM army to capture southern barbaric city and spread the might of my Crimson Sky Kingdom. Duan Lingtian spoke in a clear voice. There's such a thing? The emperor's face sank. Do you know who that person is? Duan Lingtian nodded. This is precisely what I wanted to continue talking about. That person was a member of the City Guard Army, and he received orders from the City Guard Army's commander, Xuelu, to infiltrate the Crimson WRM army with the intention of killing me and taking revenge for his son. Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. The third prince and fifth prince spoke at almost the same time. However, under the dignified gaze of the emperor, both of them shut their mouths. Continue speaking. The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian nodded. Your Majesty, I know both princes suspect that what I said is false. But this matter was personally admitted by that Commander Xuelu at the City Guard Army's campsite yesterday. I originally didn't want to do anything to him, and only wanted to ask him for some money to suppress my shock. This shouldn't be too much, right? However, that Xuelu didn't appreciate my kindness, and threatened to kill me and the embroidered uniform guards under my command. All of this was heard by the thousands of soldiers in the City Guard Army's campsite. If both princes don't believe me, you can go investigate. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he looked at the third prince and fifth prince. The latter's face sank instead. Duan Lingtian continued. In the end, for the sake of self-preservation, I could only ask the embroidered uniform guards under my command to take the initiative and kill Xuelu. Otherwise, the ones to die would only be me and the group of embroidered uniform guards under my command. Your Majesty, please judge clearly. The emperor nodded. Right at this moment. Imperial Father. A voice that was like the sound of a silver bell sounded out, and then a drop-dead gorgeous figure could be seen walking in with quick steps under the escort of 2 palace maids. This was a young girl. The young girl had a peerless appearance, and with a single glance, one couldn't help but be lost in it. Princess Biao. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised, as he never imagined that he would see Princess Biao here. Biao, you seem to be in such a hurry. Is there something urgent? The emperor's face revealed a trace of amiability when he saw Princess Biao, and this was something that wasn't present when facing the third prince and fifth prince. It was sufficient to show how much he loved this little daughter of his. Imperial Father, I heard you want to punish Commander Duan, right? Imperial Father, can you not punish Commander Duan? He wouldn't kill without reason. Princess Biao slightly gasped for breath as she spoke. In an instant, everyone present was stunned. No one had imagined that Princess Biao would actually come in such a hurry to plead for mercy for Duan Lingtong. The expressions of the third prince and fifth prince were incomparably gloomy. As for the emperor, he instead glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. He was an experienced person, and was able to discern that his daughter ought to have secretly given her heart to this youth of a similar age. Otherwise, she wouldn't have forcefully barged into the throne room. Biao, who said Imperial Father wants to punish Commander Duan. The emperor shook his head and smiled. Commander Duan explained earlier that he wasn't wrong in this matter, and it was the fault of the city guard army's commander, Xuelu. Xuelu deserved death. When they heard the emperor, the third prince and fifth prince knew that they'd come in vain today. Princess Biao's beautiful face flushed red when she heard the emperor, as she never imagined that rushing over in such a hurry would result in such an outcome. It turned out that even if she didn't come, nothing would happen to Duan Lingtian. For a moment, she was slightly ashamed to show her face. You too. Chapter 222. Yes. The third prince and fifth prince hurriedly lowered their heads in agreement. At the instant they lowered their heads, their eyes flickered with dense killing intent. This killing intent was naturally targeted at Duan Lingtian. Father, then I'll take my leave first. The third prince looked at the emperor and spoke respectfully. I'll take my leave as well. The fifth prince followed suit and left. The emperor's gaze occasionally descended onto Duan Lingtian, and occasionally descended onto Princess Baiyao. Duan Lingtian was fine. He stood there without moving like a mountain with a carefree expression. But Princess Baiyao blushed instead. Father, what are you looking at? Ha! The emperor laughed heartily, and his laughter only stopped after a short while. You two know each other? Princess Baiyao nodded shyly. The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian and lightly smiled. Commander Duan, it's rare for you to make a trip to the imperial palace. Since you know Baiyao, accompany her to walk around. Yes, your majesty. Duan Lingtian replied before leaving the throne room with Princess Baiyao. The palace maids behind Princess Baiyao followed as well. Prime Minister Gu Yuting, who stood beside the emperor and hadn't spoken since the beginning, now had a slightly gloomy expression, and his eyes flickered with a dense and fierce light. He was extremely like a ferocious venomous snake choosing a person to swallow. Compared to before, the current Princess Baiyao was obviously slightly restrained. Ever since she heard that Duan Lingtian commanded an army of 100,000 to defeat the Southern Champion Kingdom's southern barbaric city, her mind was filled with the figure of Duan Lingtian. She never imagined that this sweetheart of hers actually had such great ability. Now, walking together with the sweetheart of her dreams caused her to be embarrassed to the point that she didn't know what to say. Duan Lingtian felt that the atmosphere was slightly strange as well. After accompanying Princess Baiyao for a while, he spoke first. Princess, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first. Okay. Princess Baiyao gently nodded her head and watched Duan Lingtian leave from afar. After a long time she sighed. After leaving the palace, Duan Lingtian shook his head and sighed. Even he himself didn't know what kind of feelings he had for Princess Baiyao. However, one thing was certain. Princess Baiyao had barged into the throne room today to plead on his behalf, causing him to be slightly moved. Although she didn't help, her kind intentions were extremely rare. Oh. Heaving a sigh of relief, Duan Lingtian returned to the residence of the embroidered uniform guards, the spacious courtyard. Lord Commander, the embroidered spring sabers you gave us, are all grade 8 spirit weapons? Duan Lingtian had just entered the door when he saw Zhang Qian walking up to him with a startled expression. The other 11 people also looked at Duan Lingtian. He did not expect the Duan Lingtian to be so generous. You only just realized? Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Lord Commander, why spend so much money to ask a grade 8 weapons craftsman to refine these spirit weapons? The cost isn't small, right? Zhao Gang said as well. It's only a small toy that I casually refined, and I only spent a little money on materials. Duan Lingtian casually said. Instantly, including the 2 half-step void stage old men, the 12 people were dumbstruck. Their Lord Commander was a grade 8 weapons craftsman? According to their knowledge. It seemed that this Lord Commander would only turn 19 in 1 or 2 months, right? An 18-year-old grade 8 weapons craftsman. What concept was this? Lord Commander, if I'm not wrong, these grade 8 spirit weapons are able to provide an entire 20% amplification of strength. They're much better than those crafted by an ordinary grade 8 weapons craftsman. The old man that killed the city guard commander Shui Lu yesterday couldn't help but speak. Elder Hong has good judgment. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he nodded. This old man was precisely one of the 2 half-step void stage experts that the Divine Might Marquis Estate's senior marquis sent to him. Now, when they heard the conversation between Duan Lingtian and Elder Hong, the remaining people were even more shocked. They took out their spring-embroidered sabers and seriously tested it. In the end, they noticed that it was indeed as Elder Hong had said, it was able to provide an entire 20% amplification of strength. They couldn't help but be moved. After all, an ordinary grade 8 spirit weapon was at most able to provide an amplification of strength by 20%, and being able to provide an amplification of strength by 19% was already considered a top-grade item. When placed amongst grade 8 spirit weapons, the spring-embroidered sabers in their hands could absolutely be considered to be a top-grade item amongst the top-grade items. For a moment, the gazes they looked at Duan Lingtian with emitted slight reverence. An 18-year-old origin core stage grade 8 weapons craftsman. But it was unknown what sort of expression they would have if they knew that Duan Lingtian was also a grade 8 alchemist. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Qian. Zhang Qian, you and Zhao Gang go to the various medicine stores in the Imperial City and check for these medicinal materials. Duan Lingtian withdrew a brush and paper, then wrote down a few medicinal materials before passing it to Zhang Qian. Mainly check the accounts from 3 years ago and see if they still remember who they sold the medicinal materials to. These medicinal materials were the main medicinal materials of the poison the Emperor was poisoned with, and very few people would normally use them. Duan Lingtian's objective was to find out the person that poisoned the Emperor. Yes. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang received their orders and left. Imperial Palace, outside a quiet and secluded palace. Prime Minister Gu? An empty voice seemed to come from all directions. The voice was gloomy and cold, and didn't carry the slightest emotion. A black-clothed old man appeared without a sound. Old Shui. Gu Yuting looked at the old man and lightly nodded. Prime Minister Gu, is there something you need from me? The black-clothed old man had a pair of muddy eyes, and his entire body seemed to emit a sense of gloominess. Coupled with his thin body, he seemed as if he would fall in the wind. However, Gu Yuting instead knew that this old man's strength was extremely terrifying. At the very least, he wasn't inferior to him. Old Shui, my condolences. Gu Yuting sighed and slowly said, Prime Minister Gu, what do you mean by this? When the black-clothed old man heard this, the gloomy aura on his body became even more profound. Old Shui, maybe you still don't know. Your grandson Shui Lang had his dantian crippled by someone, and his cultivation was completely lost. Gu Yuting's eyes flashed as he spoke. What? The black-clothed old man's muddy eyes instantly flickered with a dense light, and a terrifying killing intent enveloped Gu Yuting. Prime Minister Gu, is what you said true? Yes. Gu Yuting nodded. Who did it? Did my son take revenge for Lang'er? The black-clothed old man's mood was slightly agitated. Old Shui, your son is dead. Gu Yuting bitterly laughed. The black-clothed old man didn't let out an exclamation of surprise this time, but his thin body lightly trembled, and his voice was incomparably icy cold, as if it came from the depths of hell. Prime Minister Gu, do you know who did it? Old Shui, your son precisely wanted to take revenge for your grandson. However, in the end he didn't manage to take revenge and instead was killed instead. The person that crippled your grandson and killed your son is precisely the same person. Gu Yuting slowly said. Who is it? The black-clothed old man's eyes were filled with rage, and he was furious to the extreme. The embroidered uniform guard's commander, Duan Lingtian. Gu Yuting slowly said, Old Shui, you should go back and take a look at your grandson. I'm really worried that once your son dies, that Duan Lingtian will be ruthless to your grandson. He dares. The black-clothed old man shouted in a low voice, and his tone contained frightening icy coldness mixed within. Whoosh. Instantly, the black-clothed old man's figure trembled, and he vanished without a trace. Duan Lingtian, let me see how you resist the rage of this madman Shui. The corners of Gu Yuting's mouth curled into a sneer from his scheme succeeding. On the main street of the inner city of the Imperial City, Duan Lingtian spurred his horse and walked in the front, and behind him were 10 embroidered uniform guards following closely behind. The 2 old men were like 2 guardian gods, tightly guarding Duan Lingtian on both sides. Everywhere the 11 people passed, the passers-by would move aside. It's the embroidered uniform guard. He's the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian? Oh my god. I thought the rumors were exaggerated, but I didn't expect that this Duan Lingtian is really only a youth. The surrounding passers-by whispered in discussion. These discussions were naturally heard by Duan Lingtian, but he only shook his head with a smile and didn't take it to heart. On the way there was no lack of similar discussions and he was already used to it. Giddy up. Right at this moment, a luxurious carriage approached from the front, and its speed was extremely swift. Duan Lingtian frowned. Move aside. The coachman driving the carriage was obviously extremely overbearing, and he swung the horsewhip in his hand as he shouted in surprise. When he saw the passers-by in front of him fleeing to the sides, the coachman's eyes were obviously mixed with a trace of ridicule. Soon, he saw Duan Lingtian's group. The coachman frowned, and when he saw the flying robes on Duan Lingtian's group, he faintly realized that these people might not be simple, and he panicked in his heart and hurriedly tightened the reins. Halt. The carriage stopped less than 3 meters away from Duan Lingtian's horse. Afu, why have we stopped? Right at this moment, a man's voice came from within the carriage. Third young master, there are a few military lords in front, let's wait for them to pass. The coachman looked at the youth, in the flying robes before him, and he was slightly uncertain in his heart. What military lord? The voice that came from within the carriage was slightly impatient. Soon, the carriage's curtain was lifted, and a young man stuck his head out. However, when he looked over, the young man's pupils couldn't help but constrict, and when he looked at the youth in front of him, a trace of malevolence and anger appeared on his face. It's you. Duan Lingtian was slightly stunned when the young man in front of him suddenly shouted at him. Do I know him? Duan Lingtian carefully sized up the young man who stuck his head out of the carriage, and memories flashed through his mind. In the end, a blurry figure seemed to appear before his eyes, and completely merged with the person before him. The scene outside Triumph City more than 2 years ago flashed through Duan Lingtian's mind once again. At that time, on the way to Triumph City, he encountered a young man and a young girl who treated human lives like grass. The young man and the young girl were traveling on a Fergana horse. At that time he deliberately avoided them to the side. But who would have thought that the young girl would actually brandish her horsewhip at him? He taught the young girl a lesson, and the young boy stood up for the young girl and attacked him. In the end, one of the young boy's arms was chopped off by him. Later on, Duan Lingtian found out that the young boy was the third son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei San. It's you. Chapter 223. No matter what, Duan Lingtian had never imagined that he would encounter Pei San once more. Moreover, it was on the streets of the inner city of the Imperial City. The affairs of the world are truly unpredictable. As he recalled the sorry state he was in after cutting off Pei San's arm, Duan Lingtian suddenly had a feeling as if a lifetime had passed. He still remembered that time when he desperately spurred his horse towards Triumph City, only for the sake of escaping the pursuit of the expert by Pei San's side. He could imagine that if he was caught by the expert by Pei San's side at that time, he would die for sure. Later on, even if he stayed in Triumph City for a few days, he still advanced step by step, as he was deeply afraid of being found. At that time, Pei San was an extremely great threat to him. It was even to the extent that once he was found by Pei San only had to say a word and he would die on the spot. In the past, he was filled with fear towards Pei San's identity as the son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. Yet now, Duan Lingtian suddenly noticed that when he met Pei San once more, besides being slightly surprised, he didn't have any other emotions. Perhaps it was because he stood at a different height. Or perhaps it had been too long. I finally found you. Pei San gnashed his teeth as he walked out of the carriage, and his eyes were filled with icy cold killing intent as he gazed at the youth on the horse. Duan Lingtian looked at Pei San with a calm expression. In the past he might have been afraid of Pei San. Now Pei San was already not on the same level as him. It was even to the extent that so long as he wanted, he only had to say a word, and it was sufficient to make the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate behind Pei San change hands. He believed that so long as he spoke to the emperor would absolutely satisfy his request. It was even to the extent that he only had to give an order now, and the embroidered uniform guards behind him would attack like a bolt of lightning, causing Pei San's blood to splatter and die on the spot. But he didn't do this and even didn't have the intention to fuss about it with Pei San. Third young master, what's wrong? Right at this moment, Two more people walked out successively from the carriage and stood behind Pei San. An old man and a young man. The old man was obviously in existence at the nascent soul stage. As for the young man, Li Qing? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. The young man standing behind Pei San was none other than Li Qing, who had left the Li clan that day. He didn't expect that after this Li Qing left the Li clan, he would actually walk together with the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate's third young master. The affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. Only after hearing Duan Lingtian's voice did Li Qing look towards Duan Lingtian. With just a glance, his face abruptly went pale, and he hurriedly said to Pei San, who was before him, "Third young master, it was this person that crippled your arm that day. It's him. It's him." Blood feud, do you think I still need you to tell me? Pei San turned his head slightly and glanced at Li Qing. A cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "So, Li Qing is your real name. No wonder I couldn't find out anything about you during these 2 years. Li Qing, you really have a good trick up your sleeve. You really hit it well." "Third young master, Li Qing's gaze was difficult to unravel, and a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. "I was exposed in the end? I'll deal with you later." Pei San's voice was cold and indifferent, and then his gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian. "Over 2 years ago you crippled my arm. Today I'll make you return it with interest." Duan Lingtian asked indifferently. "How do I return it with interest?" "I'll take your life." Pei San's voice was filled with hatred and ruthlessness. "Presumptuous." The faces of the two old men by Duan Lingtian's side sank as they shouted out in unison. Pei San frowned. Only now did he realize that the youth before him wasn't alone, and the gaze he looked at Duan Lingtian with became even colder. "What? Do you think I, Pei San, can't touch you just because you have a few helpers?" "Pei San." Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Pei San and he said indifferently, "That year outside Triumph City, who started the fight between us, you know best. Today it can be considered fate that we're able to meet again. I don't want to fuss about the matter from that year with you, so let's write it off at this point." It had been 2 years and he didn't suffer any losses that year, so Duan Lingtian didn't want to fuss about it anymore. The current Pei San was already not on the same level as him, and he had no intention of using his strength to bully the weak. Just let everything in the past be gone with the wind. However, this was only Duan Lingtian's wishful thinking. A wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of Pei San's mouth when he heard Duan Lingtian. "You're saying this because you're afraid? During these past 2 years I've never forgotten the scene of you crippling my arm. I wish for nothing more than to tear you into pieces, burn your bones and scatter your ashes. Only in this way can I vent the hatred in my heart. If you knew this day would come, then why did you do it in the past? That year, if you'd properly received my sister Ru's whip, then the matters after that wouldn't have happened. So, even if you die today, you can only blame yourself for being too arrogant that year. You don't know who you can offend and who you can't. I, the son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, am an existence that a lowly commoner like you can't afford to offend." As he finished speaking, Pei San's voice was filled with ruthlessness and arrogance. Li Qing stood behind Pei San, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He too felt that Duan Lingtian was going to die on the spot today, although he didn't know why Duan Lingtian would appear in the imperial city. But as far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian would die without a doubt if he encountered the berserk Pei San. Only the expression of the old man behind Pei San was slightly unnatural. He noticed that after his young master spoke these words, the passers-by on both sides of the road all revealed looks of disdain. The son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor? Scolding the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian, who was currently in the limelight as a lowly commoner? A comical feeling arose within the hearts of the passers-by. At this moment, they even forgot to whisper in whispers, and concentrated their minds and calmly watched the development of the matter before their eyes. But the gazes they shot at Pei San all leaped with traces of a mischievous smile. "Grandpa Huai, I want him dead." Pei San stretched out his hand to point at Duan Lingtian, and his gaze was filled with bloodthirsty killing intent as he fiercely shouted. But Pei San quickly noticed that the old man behind him didn't move, as if he didn't hear what Pei San said at all. "Grandpa Huai." Pei San was stunned, then he turned around to look at the old man behind him, only to notice that the old man's gaze was staring at the waist of the youth that sat astride the tall horse. His gaze followed along. This gaze caused him to be on the verge of being scared out of his wits. Embroidered uniform guard. Yesterday he'd arrived at the Imperial City and stayed for a night in the outer city. In the restaurants in the outer city, he'd heard of the rumors of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, and knew that the Embroidered Uniform Guard was the most terrifying and also the most arrogant and despotic organization in the Imperial City. Supposedly, the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duan Lingtian, was only 18 years old this year, but he'd already deeply received the favor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor and had become the emperor's spokesperson. Even though he was far away in Swallow Mountain County, he'd heard of Duan Lingtian and knew that Duan Lingtian was the #1 genius of Paladin Academy. This time, he'd come to the Imperial City precisely with the intention of reporting to Paladin Academy. As far as he was concerned, once he arrived at Paladin Academy, he might have a chance to see this legendary figure. A few months ago, when he'd first heard of Duan Lingtian, he'd already had a trace of yearning in his heart, as he was curious about what sort of figure Duan Lingtian was. When he arrived at the Imperial City and found out about Duan Lingtian's accomplishments in the northwest border battlefield, admiration arose from the bottom of his heart. When he heard that Duan Lingtian had become the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard and had even led over 10 Embroidered Uniform Guards to directly charge into the City Guard Army's campsite and kill the City Guard Army's commander, Xuelu, he only felt his blood boil. From that moment onwards, he'd practically taken Duan Lingtian to be his idol. However, now, you're the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duan Lingtian? Pei San took a deep breath and harbored a final trace of hope in his heart as he looked at Duan Lingtian. At this moment he really hoped that Duan Lingtian would deny it. What do you think? Duan Lingtian looked calmly at Pei San as he replied with a question. This son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor has finally recognized Commander Duan. Truly laughable. He actually threatened to tear Commander Duan into pieces and burn his bones to ashes. Humph. He's only the son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. Even if the Swallow Mountain County's county governor personally came today, he wouldn't dare be so presumptuous in front of Commander Duan. This Pei San is really courting death. This Pei San had an expression of deep hatred earlier, but now his face is filled with terror and disbelief. It's normal. After all, he's recognized Commander Duan now. If he still dares to act like before, then his head has really been kicked by a donkey. The surrounding crowd of spectators discussed animatedly and didn't intentionally suppress their voices. Duan? Commander Duan? Pei San's body trembled, his face ghastly pale, and he was dumbstruck. He'd completely confirmed it. He'd never imagined that the person he'd desperately wanted to kill these past 2 years would actually be this Duan Lingtian. At this moment, the hatred in his heart had completely collapsed. Only a sense of loss and powerlessness remained. Just as the surrounding crowd of spectators had said, with Duan Lingtian's current status and influence, not to mention him, even his father, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, had to treat him with respect. A trace of bitterness appeared on the face of the old man behind Pei San. This youth was the violet-clothed youth that he chased into Triumph City all those years ago? In a mere 2 years, this youth had actually already stood at such a height. Even he could only look up to Pei San. No. Impossible. It's impossible. Li Qing stood behind Pei San as he ceaselessly shook his head, unwilling to believe that all this was true. The Embroidered Uniform Guard's commander, Duan Lingtian? He'd heard of the Duan Lingtian that had given rise to much discussion within the Crimson Sky Kingdom in the past few months. But he didn't connect the Duan Lingtian of legend with his sworn enemy, the Duan Lingtian. As far as he was concerned, his sworn enemy, Duan Lingtian, was only a disciple with a different surname from a branch family under the Aurora City's Li clan. Whereas the rumored peerless genius, Duan Lingtian, was instead a direct descendant of the Imperial City's Duan clan. In the past, he'd thought that the two of them only had the same name. Chapter 224. No matter what, Li Qing would never have imagined. The Duan Lingtian that had caused much discussion in the Crimson Sky Kingdom these past few months and whose name shook the Imperial City was actually the Duan Lingtian that he wished for nothing more than to kill. A disciple with a different surname from the branch family of the Aurora City's Li clan. A direct descendant disciple of the Imperial City's Duan clan. It was actually the same person. Li Qing felt that this was absolutely a joke played by the heavens, but when he tried to pinch his thigh, the pain that came from his thigh told him that all of this was real. How could this be possible? It can't be. It can't be. Li Qing's face was ghastly pale. Everything before his eyes caused him to lose all hope. He originally planned to rely on the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate to break through to the origin core stage before returning to the Li clan to kill Duan Ling Tian and take revenge for his grandfather. But now the thoughts that he'd persevered on for 2 years instantly collapsed. Not to mention that Duan Ling Tian was now the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard. Even if he wasn't, Duan Ling Tian was still in existence at the origin core stage, the publicly acknowledged #1 genius of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation. Far from something he could compare to. Duan Ling Tian sat on his horse, and his calm gaze flashed past Pei San and Li Qing. When he saw their expressions, he didn't even have the slightest intention to fuss about it. Duan Ling Tian's cold and indifferent gaze descended onto the carriage driver in the distance. Remember to slow down when you're driving in the Imperial City in the future. Yes, yes. The carriage driver nodded like a chick pecking for grains, not daring to hesitate in the slightest. He already knew the identity of the youth now, and he knew in his heart that if Duan Ling Tian wanted to kill him, it would be no different than stepping on an ant. Let's go. Duan Ling Tian urged his horse forward slowly, bringing along the 10 embroidered uniform guards behind him. Pei San and the old man behind him only reacted when they saw the figures of Duan Ling Tian's group vanish at the end of the street. Blood grudge. No, I should call you Li Qing now. Pei San's gaze landed on Li Qing's body, faintly mixed with a trace of coldness. In his opinion, the reason why Duan Ling Tian was gradually distancing himself from him and making him lose hope of revenge was all because of Li Qing. If not for Li Qing deliberately mystifying things back then, Duan Ling Tian would not have been able to grow to such a level. When Li Qing heard Pei San's words, it was as if he woke up from a dream. He immediately knelt on the ground and begged, "Third young master, please spare my life, please spare my life." Grandpa Huai. Pei San's voice was cold. Not good. Li Qing's heart skipped a beat. He quickly got up, intending to escape. However, he was a martial artist that hadn't even stepped into the origin core stage, so how could he possibly escape from the hands of a nascent soul stage martial artist? In the blink of an eye, the top of his head was shattered by the old man's palm strike. Dead. When he saw Li Qing being killed, Pei San took a deep breath and returned to the carriage. He understood that even if he couldn't let go of some enmity, he had to bury it in the depths of his heart. The current Duan Ling Tian wasn't someone he could deal with. If he was stubborn, he would only be courting death. Moreover, it might implicate his father, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. Duan Ling Tian was leading the group of embroidered uniform guards as they walked on the streets. Suddenly, his vigilant spiritual force noticed that something was wrong. A pair of gloomy eyes were staring at him from the shadows. Moreover, this person's cultivation wasn't weak and was even skilled in concealment. If it wasn't for Duan Ling Tian's heart being as calm as water now, he might not have noticed. This is an expert. Duan Ling Tian became vigilant in his heart. Relying on his spiritual force that was comparable to a nascent soul stage martial artist, he could sense how terrifying this person was. It was extremely likely that this person was a half-step void stage expert. Let's go back. Duan Ling Tian didn't panic. He called out to the 10 embroidered uniform guards behind him, then turned his horse around and headed towards where the embroidered uniform guards were staying. On the way, Duan Ling Tian conversed with the 2 old men beside him in a low voice. Old Hong, Old Qin. No matter what I say later, both of you must not panic. Duan Ling Tian first gave the 2 old men a dose of assurance. After that, he spoke of his discovery, allowing the 2 old men to be on guard. The 2 old men nodded to indicate that they understood. Before long, Duan Ling Tian's group returned to where the embroidered uniform guards were staying. Under Duan Ling Tian's instructions, the door to the spacious courtyard was closed. At practically the same time that Duan Ling Tian's group walked in, a figure silently leaped over the wall and lightly descended into the front courtyard. Who is it? Instantly, an embroidered uniform guard that was walking at the back noticed the old man's tracks. Duan Ling Tian wasn't surprised, and he slowly turned around to look at the old man. The old man was dressed in black, and a dense killing intent was emitted from between his brows. His fierce gaze descended precisely onto Duan Ling Tian. As expected, his target is me. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. He knew that this person was the person that was spying on him in secret earlier. But he was slightly curious. Who exactly was this old man? When this old man in black looked at him, it was as if he had seen a great enemy of life and death. Duan Ling Tian was sure that he didn't know this old man, and had never seen him before. You ought to be the commander of the embroidered uniform guards, Duan Ling Tian, right? The old man in black's gloomy and cold gaze descended onto Duan Ling Tian. Instantly, besides Old Hong and Old Qin, the expressions of the 10 embroidered uniform guards beside Duan Tian slightly changed, and they moved to protect Duan Tian behind them. Exactly, I'm Duan Tian, but I wonder who you are? Duan Tian's gaze was calm as he asked. Now, he could practically confirm that this old man in black was in existence at the half-step void stage, and his strength was extremely terrifying. Who am I? A wisp of icy coldness appeared on the old man's face as he said coldly, I'm Shui Lu's father. Shui Yun. Instantly, the expressions of Old Hong and Old Qin who stood at both sides of Duan Tian went serious as they exclaimed in a low voice. What? Both of you know me? Shui Yun's gaze descended onto Old Hong and Old Qin. Both of you are members of the Divine Might Marquis estate? Old Hong and Old Qin looked at Shui Yun with a calm expression. Shui Yun. Duan Tian couldn't help but recall that after he crippled Shui Lang's Dantian that day, the city guard army commander Shui Lu was guarding him at the entrance of Paladin Academy. When the Duan clan's Grand Elder arrived, he had once mentioned this name. It was precisely Shui Lu's father. Now Duan Tian came to a sudden understanding. No wonder this old man in black would look at him with such hatred. It turned out that the enmity between them had been planted deep since long ago. Today my target is only this Duan Tian. I have no intention of making things difficult for the Divine Might Marquis estate. If both of you are sensible, then leave right now. Otherwise, even if I have to risk offending the Divine Might Marquis estate, I'll still make both of you accompany this Duan Tian in death. Shui Yun's gaze went slightly cold as he spoke in a low voice. What high-sounding sentiments. Then let's see if you have the ability. Old Hong and Old Qin took a step forward, their gazes were like swords, and their tone contained slight rage mixed within. Alright, let me see what ability all of you have. As soon as the old man finished speaking, he moved. Instantly, he seemed to have transformed into a black bolt of lightning that flashed towards Old Hong and Old Qin with an extremely swift speed. Above him, 1,500 plus ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. He really is an expert that has stepped into the half-step void stage. Duan Tian's gaze focused. Even if a 9th-level nascent soul stage martial artist exerted his full strength, he would only possess the strength of 1,200 ancient mammoths. A first-level void-prying stage martial artist possessed the strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths. Although Shui Yun's strength was far inferior to a void-prying stage martial artist, it still far surpassed a 9th-level nascent soul stage martial artist. Whoosh, whoosh. Old Hong and Old Qin transformed into 2 bolts of lightning that moved to intercept Shui Yun. Above the heads of Elder Hong and Elder Qin, over 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes had floated up into appearance. In terms of strength, Old Hong and Old Qin weren't inferior to Shui Yun. Moreover, Old Hong and Old Qin had joined forces and suppressed Shui Yun in a short moment. The cooperation between the two of them was flawless. Both of you are the Divine Might Marquis Estate's Hu and He elders? Shui Yun's face went ghastly pale as he guessed the identity of the 2 people that attacked him. Hu and He elders? Duan Tian couldn't help but be stunned. Old Hong and Old Qin had such a nickname? However, he was able to discern that when Old Hong attacked, he was indeed like a ferocious tiger, whereas when Old Qin attacked, he was like a graceful crane. Old Hong was adept in attacks and firmly suppressed Shui Yun. Old Qin was adept in movement techniques, causing Shui Yun to have nowhere to flee. I never imagined that the Divine Might Marquis estate would be so generous. They actually sent you Hu and He elders to follow this little bastard. Shui Yun's figure flashed to the side and his face sank. Since you Hu and He elders are here today, then I'll give you face. I'll come take this little bastard's life next time. As soon as he finished speaking, Shui Yun wanted to flee. Since you've come, don't think of leaving. Old Qin spoke with a cold and indifferent voice. His figure flashed out and the white robe on his body fluttered, as if transforming into a swift white crane that instantly obstructed Shui Yun's path. In terms of speed, Shui Yun was unable to catch up to Old Qin. Meanwhile, Old Hong had caught up in time and blocked Shui Yun's path with Old Qin, causing him to have nowhere to flee. Hu and He elders, you seem to have forgotten my identity, right? Shui Yun's face sank as he knew very well that if this were to continue, then the one to die would surely be him. He stretched out his hand and withdrew a command token, and on the command token, the word Spectre was inscribed. I'm the Spectre Guard under the command of His Majesty, the Mortal Emperor. If you kill me, then I'll surely bring calamity to your Divine Might Marquis estate. His Majesty, the Mortal Emperor? Spectre Guard? A trace of bewilderment appeared on Duan Lingtian's face, as these two terms were so unfamiliar to him. Shuiyun, you think too highly of yourself. Old Hong's voice revealed a trace of disdain. Would His Majesty, the mortal emperor, fall out with our divine might Marquis estate because of a mere spectre guard? What a joke. Perhaps it wouldn't in the past, but don't forget that your divine might Marquis estate's senior marquis was poisoned by the dark nether mink and isn't the void prying stage expert of the past. Shuiyun took a deep breath and spoke with a low voice. Then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. In at most 3 months, the dark nether mink poison in the senior marquis will be completely expelled. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be amused when he heard Shuiyun. Chapter 225. Little bastard, don't speak without thinking. Even a grade 6 alchemist is helpless against the poison of the dark nether mink. Who are you trying to fool? Shuiyun's icy cold eyes flashed past Duan Lingtian as he sneered. As far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian was only an ignorant youth. Duan Lingtian couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on Shuiyun, and he said indifferently, Elder Hong, Elder Qin? You two ought to remember what the senior marquis said to you two when you left the divine might marquis estate with me, right? I don't care what spectre guard he is. Now I want him dead. Duan Lingtian's tone was carefree, yet it revealed dense killing intent. A half-step void stage expert was too great of a threat to him. Moreover, the enmity between him and this half-step void stage expert could be said to be irreconcilable. If the half-step void stage expert didn't die, his heart wouldn't be at ease. Yes, Lord Commander. Elder Hong and Elder Qin nodded and directly attacked with their full strength. Shuiyun's face went grim, and with a raise of his hand, a 3-foot-long blade appeared in his hand. His origin energy skyrocketed, and the 3-foot-long blade emitted a wave of sword howls, and the ancient mammoth silhouettes above him instantly soared to over 1,900. Obviously, this was a grade 7 spirit weapon. But only he had a grade 7 spirit weapon? Elder Hong and Elder Qin each withdrew their grade 7 spirit weapons, and over 1,900 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above them as well. The grade 7 spirit weapon in Elder Hong's hand was a spear. The grade 7 spirit weapon in Elder Qin's hand was a bone fan. Swish! Shuiyun attacked. The sword in his hand seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning that tore through the sky, and a piercing howl sounded out as it flashed straight towards Elder Qin. Perhaps, as far as he was concerned, only by injuring Elder Qin would he have the hope of escaping. Elder Qin didn't dodge, and with a raise of his hand, the bone fan in his hand started to revolve faster and faster, emitting an ear-piercing howl of the wind that caused the surrounding air to freeze. Origin energy skyrocketed on the bone fan, and it actually revolved as it flashed out, aiming straight for Shuiyun's throat. Facing Shuiyun's sword, Elder Qin wasn't afraid in the slightest, and seemed to be waiting for Shuiyun's sword to flash over. Whoosh! At the critical moment, the long spear in Elder Hong's hand shook. Like a dragon coming out of its cave, it tore through the sky and blocked Shuiyun's sword. No! Shuiyun shouted. This would be the last sound he made in his life. His head was directly twisted off by the rotating bone fan. Death. The two halves of Shuiyun's body fell to the ground, staining the ground with blood. At this time Old Man Qin raised his hand, and the fan returned to his hand. There was not a trace of blood on it. So strong. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed in surprise. At the same time he was shocked by the alliance between Elder Hong and Elder Qin. The two of them had a tacit understanding and trusted each other. When faced with Shuiyun's sword, not only did Old Qin not dodge, he instead took advantage of that moment to unleash his strongest attack, causing Shuiyun to be unable to defend against it. He dared to do so because he trusted Elder Hong. Elder Hong didn't disappoint him and blocked the sword that was about to pierce through his chest. He believed that when Elder Hong and Elder Qin joined forces, there probably weren't many half-step void stage experts below the void prying stage that were a match for them. With Elder Hong and Elder Qin's strength, they're absolutely the divine might Marquis estate's trump card. I never imagined that Grandpa Nya would lend them to me. A trace of warmth arose in Duan Lingtian's heart. Whereas the other 8 people that the divine might Marquis sent to Duan Lingtian didn't reveal the slightest surprise, as if they'd known since long ago that Elder Hong and Elder Qin possessed such strength. Duan Lingtian took off Shuiyun's spatial ring and picked up his grade 7 spirit sword. Shuiyun's sword was completely jet black and revealed a sense of simplicity. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian's hand shook and black-colored lightning flashed out, whereas 39 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above Duan Lingtian. an amplification of 27%, not bad. It's better than the grade 8 spirit weapon I'm refining now. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart and directly put away the completely jet black grade 7 spirit sword. Meanwhile, all the embroidered uniform guards present, including Elder Hong and Elder Qin, were all dumbstruck. When their Lord Commander utilized a grade 7 spirit weapon, he was able to draw upon the energy of heaven and earth to develop 39 ancient mammoth silhouettes. A grade 7 spirit weapon amplified strength by almost 30%. In other words, even without a spirit weapon, he was still able to exert the strength of 30 ancient mammoths. Second level of the Origin Core stage. They never imagined that their Lord Commander had already broken through to the second level of the Origin Core stage, an 18-year-old second-level Origin Core stage martial artist. They felt their scalps go numb. In next to no time, after instructing the remaining embroidered uniform guards to deal with Shui Yun's corpse, Duan Ling Tian called out to Elder Hong and Elder Qin before walking into the rear courtyard together. Duan Ling Tian looked at the two old men and asked curiously, "Elder Hong, Elder Qin, what exactly are the Mortal Emperor and Spectre Guard that Shui Yun spoke of earlier? Can you two explain it to me?" "Of course." Elder Hong nodded, and his expression became slightly serious. "His Majesty the Mortal Emperor is called Mortal Emperor Chu, and he's the half-brother of the current emperor. He's from the same generation as your father, Duan Ruffing. That year, in the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, his natural talent was only inferior to your father. Later on, Mortal Emperor Chu left the Crimson Sky Kingdom and went to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom to wander. When he returned over 10 years later, his cultivation had stepped into the Void Prying stage. At that time, the Void Prying stage expert of the older generation of the Imperial family had just passed away, and he took over the heavy responsibility of protecting the Imperial family and became the Mortal Emperor that hid behind the scenes. As for the Spectre Guard, they were the servants by the side of the Mortal Emperor. There were a total of 9 of them, and all of them were half-step Void stage experts." Elder Hong finished speaking in one breath. Duan Ling Tian came to a sudden understanding. Mortal Emperor Chu, the Void stage expert of the Imperial family. He deeply remembered it in his heart. "Lord Commander, the Marquis sent someone to inform you to make a trip to the Divine Might Marquis estate." Right at this moment, a voice sounded out from the front courtyard. Duan Ling Tian, who was in the rear courtyard, heard it clearly, and he lightly smiled to the two people before him. "Elder Hong, Elder Qin, come with me." Before long, Duan Ling Tian had once again arrived at the Divine Might Marquis estate. "Little Tian, the medicinal materials you wanted have been gathered." The Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan revealed a smile when he saw Duan Ling Tian arrive. So fast. Duan Ling Tian was slightly surprised. After all, one of the main medicinal catalysts to refine the grade 8 spirit cleansing pill was an extremely rare medicinal material. Even in the Imperial City it was extremely rare. He never imagined that it had only been a few days, and this Uncle Nye of his had already gathered it. The Divine Might Marquis estate's resources and reserves were extraordinary as expected. Nye Yuan smiled. Amongst those medicinal materials, there was an extremely rare medicinal material. However, it just so happened that an alchemist I knew possessed it, so I asked him to transfer it to me. Duan Ling Tian nodded and arrived at the rear courtyard of the Divine Might Marquis estate with Nye Yuan. Before long, Duan Ling Tian withdrew his cauldron and condensed a grade 8 pill fire, then he started to officially refine the grade 8 spirit cleansing pill. Duan Ling Tian placed a pile of medicinal materials into the cauldron and spent 3 hours to refine 7 grade 8 spirit cleansing pills, which slightly exceeded his expectations. "Grandpa Nye, these 3 grade 8 spirit cleansing pills are the same as last time, consume them in 3 batches. After 3 months, the toxic poison of the dark nether mink in your body will completely vanish." Duan Ling Tian put away 4 grade 8 spirit cleansing pills and passed the other 3 to the old man. The old man directly consumed one, and his face revealed a carefree smile. "Little Tian, it's all thanks to you." Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. "Grandpa Nye, there's no need to be courteous with me. If it wasn't for you sending old Hong and old Qin to me today, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see you again. If it wasn't for those 2 old men today, it could be imagined that it would be impossible for Duan Ling Tian to survive under Shui Yun's hands." "What's going on?" The old man's face sank when he heard this, and his pair of muddy eyes lit up with a bright light as killing intent shot out. "Little Tian, who's so audacious to dare touch you?" Nye Yuan had an enraged expression as well. "Grandpa Nye, Uncle Nye, don't worry, he's already dead. That person is called Shui Yun, and he seems to be the father of the city guard army's commander, Shuelu. Duanling Tian spoke slowly. Shuiyun? According to my knowledge, he seems to be a specter guard. But since he dared touch you, he deserved to die. The old man had a casual expression, as if he didn't take Shuiyun's death to heart in the slightest. Nye Yuan was more or less the same. Uncle Nye, you haven't consumed the Monkey King wine? Duanling Tian looked at Nye Yuan and changed the topic. I intend to consume it in a few days. At that time, I'll temporarily leave the imperial city and find a place to welcome the 6-9 heavenly tribulation. Nye Yuan lightly smiled. Looks like Uncle Nye is extremely confident in stepping into the void prying stage in a short period of time. Duanling Tian blinked his eyes and smiled. Ah. Even if Uncle Nye steps into the void prying stage, it's all because of you. If it wasn't for your Monkey King wine, I don't know how long it would take for me to break through, and I might even be unable to break through in my entire lifetime. As he finished speaking, Nye Yuan shook his head and sighed. Even though he was only a step away from the void prying stage. But in the history of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, many half-step void stage martial artists like him had appeared. Among them, 90% and above were unable to break through to the void prying stage until they died. If one wanted to step into the void prying stage, one must possess extraordinary natural talent. Of course, with ordinary natural talent, it wasn't impossible to break through to the void prying stage. As long as one had the assistance of a void advancement pill, Monkey King wine, or similar external forces, one could similarly smoothly break through to the void prying stage. Uncle Nye, you're exaggerating. Even Grandpa Nye was able to break through to the void prying stage, how could you possibly have a problem? Duanling Tian shook his head and smiled. However, Nye Yuan hadn't spoken when the old man spoke first. Little Tian, you don't know. Grandpa Nye was able to break through to the void prying stage because he consumed a void advancement pill. If I didn't have a void advancement pill, I'm afraid it would be difficult for me to break through to the void prying stage in my entire lifetime. Duanling Tian was stunned, as he never imagined that the old man relied on a void advancement pill to break through to the void prying stage. After leaving the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duanling Tian directly returned home. He called Xiong Quan over. Young master. Xiong Quan respectfully bowed to Duanling Tian. Xiong Quan, take it. Chapter 226. Young master, this is? Although Xiong Quan could vaguely guess what it was, he could not help but ask for confirmation. This is a grade 8 spirit cleansing pill, and it's the same as the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill from before. Consume it 3 times. After 3 months, your cultivation will recover by another third, and you ought to be able to recover to the void prying stage. Duanling Tian said with a smile. Xiong Quan's breathing became hurried when he heard this. His cultivation could finally recover to the void prying stage. These days he had been very sullen. He was originally in existence at the 6th level of the void prying stage, yet because of the origin restriction goo, his cultivation had suffered an extremely great restriction. If he was able to recover to the void prying stage, then even if he was only at the 1st level of the void prying stage, it would far surpass his current state. After all, he had many formidable abilities that could only be executed by relying on the strength of the void prying stage. Also, this is your antidote for the past 6 months. Subsequently, Duanling Tian spent half an hour in front of Xiong Quan to refine a simple and unadorned medicinal pill before he passed it to Xiong Quan. Back then, when he gave Xiong Quan the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill, he mixed it with a special poison. That kind of poison was something that even the spirit cleansing pill couldn't do anything about. Every 6 months, Xiong Quan had to take the antidote. Otherwise he would definitely die. This was also his method of controlling Xiong Quan. Thank you, young master. Xiong Quan's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly took it and swallowed it. After sending Xiong Quan away, Duanling Tian went to the backyard. Only now did he notice that the 2 little girls had smoothly broken through to the origin core stage. After accompanying the 2 girls for a while, Duanling Tian returned to his room. Duanling Tian took out another drop of Monkey King wine and drank it. Then he began to cultivate. This time, Duanling Tian discovered that the medicinal effects of the Monkey King wine had weakened by half compared to the last time. He began to circulate the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Techniques Flood Python transformation. In the end, Duanling Tian barely broke through to the 2nd level of the origin core stage. Looks like the Monkey King wine is the same as the monkey wine. The effect is better the first time, and the effect will be reduced by half every time after that. The second time is half the effect of the first time, the third time is half the effect of the second time, and so on. In the end, the effect is equivalent to nothing. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. He also realized that unless he stepped into the half-step void stage in the future and used the Monkey King wine to break through. Otherwise, no matter how much Monkey King wine he drank, it would be a waste. However, now that his cultivation had broken through to the second level of the origin core stage, it allowed Duan Lingtian to possess the strength of 41 ancient mammoths. Compared to an ordinary second-level origin core stage martial artist, he possessed the strength of 11 ancient mammoths more. Compared to an ordinary third-level origin core stage martial artist, he possessed the strength of an extra ancient mammoth. That Shui Yun is a specter guard. Duan Lingtian took out Shui Yun's storage ring and used a drop of blood to bind it to him. He glanced inside and his eyes narrowed. There's actually only a little over 1,000,000 taels of silver. This Shui Yun he's doing too badly, right? In any case, he's still in existence at the half-step void stage. Duan Lingtian had a look of disdain on his face as he spoke. At the entrance of the fifth prince's mansion. When I have the time, I will go to Pingyang County to visit you. The fifth prince looked at Tong Li and lightly smiled as he spoke. Cousin? Tong Li's eyes were hazy with tears and her face contained slight unwillingness. Could it be that we're really unable to do anything to that Duan Lingtian? After she found out about Duan Lingtian's current strength, Tong Li's heart was filled with unwillingness and resentment. Don't worry. Once I ascend the throne, I'll surely capture that Duan Lingtian and send him before you, allowing you to deal with him as you please. The fifth prince made a promise. Tong Li's expression eased up slightly when she heard this, and she fiercely nodded as her gaze was vicious. Good. At that time I'll slice off his flesh piece by piece and watch him bleed to the last drop of blood. Subsequently, Tong Li brought along the old woman beside her and left the fifth prince's mansion. They returned to Pingyang County. Only when Tong Li's carriage vanished before his eyes did the fifth prince bring along the white-browed old man and turn around to return to the mansion. Don't worry. That old fellow won't be able to live for long. On the way back, the fifth prince muttered to himself. Ever since he killed Shui Yun, Duan Lingtian's life had gradually calmed down. The third prince and fifth prince seemed to have vanished from his world as well. The prime minister, Gu Yuting, seemed to have gone completely silent as well. Now, besides occasionally going to Paladin Academy, he would usually stay at home to accompany the two little girls and accompany his mother, Li Ro. Occasionally he would go to the embroidered uniform guard's lodgings to investigate who actually poisoned the emperor. Now as time passed, more and more clues appeared. Duan Lingtian believed that it wouldn't be long before he would be able to find out the truth and find the culprit. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian had turned 19 and stepped into the ranks of youths, and the childishness on his face had completely faded away. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, extraordinarily handsome and elegant. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. Within a spacious room, a violet-clothed youth abruptly opened his eyes, and above him 51 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. I've finally broken through. Luckily, the monkey wine doesn't conflict with the Monkey King wine. Duan Lingtian's face revealed a smile. Ever since he drank the Monkey King wine for the second time and noticed that the effects weren't great, he didn't waste the Monkey King wine and instead drank the monkey wine. In the end, he noticed that the medicinal strength of the monkey wine didn't weaken because he drank the Monkey King wine. Relying on the medicinal strength of the monkey wine and the assistance of the origin strengthening pill, he smoothly broke through to the third level of the origin core stage after 3 months. The origin strengthening pill was the upgraded version of the origin increasing pill, and was also a medicinal pill used by origin core martial artists to cultivate. It was able to increase the cultivation speed of an origin core martial artist. During these 3 months, Duan Lingtian had refined quite a few origin strengthening pills with extremely high purity, and they were far from what the origin strengthening pills sold outside could compare to. The two little girls at home, Kerr and Li Fei, successively stepped into the second level of the origin core stage as well after consuming the second drop of Monkey King wine. In the entire younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, only Duan Lingtian was able to steadily surpass their cultivations. Of course, only Duan Lingtian knew of all this. Outsiders were completely unaware. Otherwise, who knew what sort of commotion it would cause? After breaking through, Duan Lingtian, who was in an extremely good mood, came to Paladin Academy to have a meal with Xiao Yu, Xiao Sun and Tianhu. Presently, Xiao Yu's group of 3 had already gotten used to Duan Lingtian's behavior of skipping class. Presently, Duan Lingtian didn't make any difference whether he skipped class or not. To a certain extent, his current status in the Crimson Sky Kingdom could already be considered to be second only to one person and above everyone else. Presently, in the Imperial City, perhaps some people didn't know who the Prime Minister was, but practically no one didn't know who the Embroidered Uniform Guard's commander was. The commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duan Lingtian, was the spokesperson of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor, and in the eyes of the current emperor, his status even surpassed the Prime Minister, Gu Yuting. Right, calculating the time, the new batch of students should have entered the academy, right? We should be considered to be Year 2 students now, right? Duan Lingtian asked. Duan Lingtian, you're really slow. The new students entered the academy 2 days ago, and we've already advanced to Year 2. Tianhu shook his head and smiled. Even if Duan Lingtian was now the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, he still wasn't unfamiliar with him. The friendship between him and Duan Lingtian wouldn't change because of the change in status of one of them. Duan Lingtian, do you have any plans? Xiao Sun looked at Duan Lingtian as he asked. As far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian was only 19 years old and had already obtained such accomplishments in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. In the Crimson Sky Kingdom, unless he wanted to rebel and seize the throne, it would be extremely difficult for him to stand higher. In the Crimson Sky Kingdom, he practically stood at the peak. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Of course I have plans. However, everything has to wait until I finish some unfinished business. After I finish, maybe I'll leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. According to what Duan Lingtian found out from Xiong Quan, some of the sects in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were located in places with beautiful mountains and limpid waters. The origin energy there was abundant, and it was greatly beneficial to cultivation. Compared to cultivating in an ordinary place, the speed was much faster. Some places even had a cultivation speed that was twice as fast as ordinary places. He could imagine that if he was able to cultivate in those places, coupled with the high-purity origin strengthening pill in his possession, his cultivation would surely advance by leaps and bounds. So, he already planned to enter one of the top sects in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, only for the sake of the superb cultivation grounds within. However, no matter if it was the Paladin Academy he was currently in, or the top sect of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom he wanted to enter in the future, they were all only a springboard for him. His ambition wasn't in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, nor was it in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? After hearing what Duan Lingtian said, Xiao Yu, Xiao Sun, and Tianhu all had expressions of yearning. After finishing his meal with the three of them, Duan Lingtian left Paladin Academy and brought Xiong Quan along to the Embroidered Uniform Guard's residence. Presently, Xiong Quan's cultivation had recovered to the void-prying stage and had become a great help to him. Commander, we found it. As soon as he entered, Duan Lingtian saw Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang greet him. You found it? Duan Lingtian's gaze shone. Who bought those medicinal materials? Zhang Qian took a few steps forward and closed the courtyard house's door before returning to Duan Lingtian's side and saying in a low voice, Commander, it's someone from the 5th Prince's estate. 5th Prince's estate? Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted. Are you sure? This isn't a joke. As the saying goes, even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. This vicious tiger ought to not eat its father, right? Commander, we've caught the person that bought the medicinal materials and confirmed it. Those medicinal materials were bought by the 5th Prince's personal manager, White Brows. Zhao Gang added. Looks like this matter is related to the 5th Prince. I want to make a trip to the Imperial Palace. Duan Lingtian nodded, and his heart slightly trembled. The 5th Prince is really ruthless and merciless, to even be so ruthless to his own father. Duan Lingtian brought Xiong Quan along as he hastily entered the Imperial Palace to see the Emperor. Commander Duan, for you to come in such a hurry, do you have any leads? The Emperor guessed the reason Duan Lingtian had come. Your Majesty, I really don't know how to start this matter. Duan Lingtian had a bitter smile on his face. Could it be that he should directly tell the Emperor that his son wanted to kill him? Speak. The Emperor's gaze was calm as he slowly spoke. Chapter 227. 5th Prince. When the Emperor heard Duan Lingtian's words, his breathing became hurried. After a long time, he took a deep breath, and a trace of gloominess flashed through his eyes. Duan Lingtian looked at the Emperor, and he could clearly feel the rage in the Emperor's heart. He could understand the Emperor's current feelings. Commander Duan. The Emperor opened his mouth and his voice was ice-cold, revealing a bone-piercing chill. Your Majesty. Duan Lingtian replied. Now, bring your embroidered uniform guards and capture that unfilial son. We will immediately summon the Prime Minister and the Divine Might Marquis to enter the palace. We will execute that unfilial son in the throne room as a warning to others. The Emperor's voice seemed to come from the depths of hell, incomparably gloomy and cold. He was completely enraged. Duan Lingtian sucked in a breath of cold air. It was said that the monarch was heartless, and he had thoroughly experienced it today. However, when he thought of the fifth prince's actions, Duan Lingtian felt at ease. The fifth prince only had himself to blame. Yes. Duan Lingtian received the order and left the palace with Xiong Quan. He gathered the 12 embroidered uniform guards under him, and the group headed directly to the fifth prince's residence. When the guards at the entrance of the fifth prince's residence saw Duan Lingtian bring people over, their expressions changed. Commander Duan. They recognized the embroidered uniform guard's flying fish robes and respectfully bowed to Duan Lingtian, not daring to obstruct him. Duan Lingtian ignored these guards and brought Xiong Quan and the 12 embroidered uniform guards, directly charging into the fifth prince's residence. Duan Lingtian, you're presumptuous. Soon, the fifth prince came out and behind him followed an old man with white eyebrows. Presumptuous. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused as he looked at the fifth prince and said indifferently, Fifth Prince, I'm here on His Majesty's orders to invite you into the palace. So, I hope that the fifth prince will cooperate. If Imperial Father wanted to summon me, why would he send you here? Duan Lingtian, what are you trying to do? The fifth prince's face darkened. Clearly he did not believe Duan Lingtian's words. Fifth prince, if you don't cooperate, don't blame me for using force. Men, invite the fifth prince in. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he suddenly issued an order, his voice like a clap of thunder. Immediately, except for Xiong Quan, Elder Hong and Elder Qin who were standing behind Duan Lingtian, the other 10 embroidered uniform guards stepped forward to capture the fifth prince. How dare you? The face of the white-browed old man behind the fifth prince sank. With a roar, he took a step forward and shielded the fifth prince behind him. If anyone tries to stop us, kill them. Duan Lingtian continued to order, his voice cold. Instantly, the 10 embroidered uniform guards made a move. The embroidered spring sabers whistled out with piercingly cold lights, and they seemed to have transformed into numerous venomous snakes that bit towards the old man. The old man's figure shook as 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above him. 9th level nascent soul stage martial artist. However, even if he was at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage, under the tacit cooperation of 10 7th and 8th level nascent soul stage martial artists, he didn't gain the slightest advantage. It was even to the extent that he was slightly in a sorry state under the envelopment of the saber net formed by the embroidered spring sabers. Right at this moment, a wave of whistling sounded out. It was precisely the fifth prince who blew it. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Instantly, numerous figures that were exceedingly swift flashed over from all directions. These people were led by an old man. This old man wore azure clothes and his movements carried along a shocking aura. His cultivation was extraordinary. Behind the old man, another 5 old men followed closely behind, and there was also a group of middle-aged men with cold expressions following closely behind. These middle-aged men were precisely the death warriors fostered by the fifth prince, death warriors that lived only for the sake of slaughter. The old man in the lead dashed out, and 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him. Half-step void stage expert. Elder Pu, I want that Duan Lingtian dead. The fifth prince's gaze lit up when he saw this old man, and he abruptly gave the order, as if he was filled with confidence towards this old man. Don't worry, your highness, not a single one of them will survive. The voice of the old man in the lead spread out in the air, and his entire body seemed to have transformed into a rock that enveloped towards Duan Lingtian. Xiong Quan, kill him. Duan Lingtian's gaze was calm and his expression carefree when faced with this half-step void stage expert flashing over. Yes, young master. Xiong Quan's figure flashed out when he heard this. Swish. Accompanied by an awe-inspiring sound of the wind, the clear howl of the sword stopped abruptly. Instantly, a dazzling pillar of blood blossomed out from the throat of the old man that was approaching menacingly, and he was still halfway to Duan Lingtian when he lowered his head and fell to the ground, fiercely being thrown out by inertia, and he completely lost all signs of life. Dead. Besides Elder Hong and Elder Qin who rode beside Duan Lingtian, no one present was able to clearly see Xiong Quan's movements. In their eyes, Xiong Quan had always been sitting on the horse and had never moved. Void prying stage. Elder Hong and Elder Qin's hearts trembled. They never imagined that the middle-aged man that had been following beside the commander recently was actually a void-prying stage expert. Moreover, he seemed to not be as simple as a first-level void-prying stage expert. They only felt their scalps go numb. No. The fifth prince's pupils constricted when he saw this scene, and he wasn't willing to believe that everything before his eyes was real. His greatest reliance and existence at the half-step void stage had died just like this? The other 5 old men that were following behind the half-step void stage old man had now stopped moving, and they were all dumbstruck from fright. The white-browed old man's figure flashed out to avoid the joint attack of the group of embroidered uniform guards, and he stood in the distance and was stunned for a moment. Only those death warriors pounced forward one after another. But they all died under the embroidered spring sabers of the 10 embroidered uniform guards. Not long after, the front courtyard of the fifth prince's estate flowed with blood. There wasn't a single death warrior left standing. Fifth prince, I hope you can cooperate. Duan Lingtian's icy cold gaze swept past the white-browed old man and the other 5 old men that were dumbstruck before finally descending onto the fifth prince. The fifth prince was slightly dazed, and he only recovered from his shock when the 10 embroidered uniform guards surrounded him. Duan Lingtian, you're dead. The fifth prince looked at Duan Lingtian, and his voice was filled with icy coldness. Fifth prince, I've said it before. I'm under the orders of His Majesty to invite you into the palace. Duan Lingtian continued. As for the fifth prince's threat, he didn't take it to heart. His Majesty? Did that old fellow notice something? A trace of viciousness flashed within the fifth prince's eyes as he asked in a low voice. Old fellow? Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at the fifth prince. Looks like the fifth prince didn't respect the emperor in the slightest, and actually called him old fellow. Take him away. Duan Lingtian turned his horse around and left the fifth prince's estate. He didn't notice that when the fifth prince was thrown onto the back of a horse by an embroidered uniform guard, he gave the white-browed old man a look. The white-browed old man nodded with a serious expression. After Duan Lingtian took the fifth prince away, the white-browed old man left the fifth prince's estate at the first possible moment and headed straight for the imperial palace. In terms of speed, it was far faster than Duan Lingtian's group that was traveling on horseback. Duan Lingtian's group brought the fifth prince into the imperial palace. When they arrived at the throne room, they noticed that besides the emperor, there were many other people present. Besides the Divine Might Marquis Nie Yuan and Prime Minister Gu Yuting, the senior marquis of the Divine Might Marquis estate had also come. He was currently sitting at the side, obviously having been given a seat by the emperor. Duan Lingtian led Xiong Quan and the 12 embroidered uniform guards into the throne room. Imperial Father. When the fifth prince saw the emperor, it was as if he had seen his savior as he knelt on the ground. This Duan Lingtian is audacious and presumptuous. He actually dared to barge into your son's estate and even killed my men. Imperial Father, you have to uphold justice for your son. It was I who asked Commander Duan to capture you. What? Do you have any objections? The emperor's gaze was slightly cold as he spoke in a deep voice. Imperial Father, I wonder what wrong I've done? The fifth prince looked at the emperor and asked. You know very well what you've done. Don't tell me you want me to tell you personally? The emperor's face sank and his eyes revealed a trace of gloominess. Imperial Father, you must not listen to the slanderous words of a villain. This Duan Lingtian has a personal grudge with your son. He's framing your son. The fifth prince hurriedly said. Framing? The emperor sneered. Do you really think I'm an incapable ruler? I originally suspected you as well, but after thinking about it, you're my son after all, so I convinced myself not to suspect you anymore. Who knew that the truth would be revealed today? It really was you, my good son. Imperial Father, I don't know what you're talking about. The fifth prince pretended to be confused. Just when the emperor's face sank and was about to angrily rebuke the fifth prince. Sun. A calm voice sounded out from outside the throne room. In next to no time, a white-clothed middle-aged man slowly walked in. His speed seemed to be slow, but in the blink of an eye he'd already arrived within the audience hall. At this moment, another person followed in from behind. It was precisely the white-browed old man from the fifth prince's estate. Your Majesty, mortal emperor. For a moment, Nie Yuan and Gu Yuting looked at the person that arrived and lightly bowed. Duan Lingtian's brows raised. Mortal emperor? He's mortal Emperor Chu? The formidable void stage expert of the imperial family? Fourth imperial brother? The emperor saw mortal Emperor Chu arrive, and the furious expression on his face eased up slightly. Why have you come? Imperial brother, I heard you want to punish Sun? Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the emperor, and a murderous intent flashed within his calm eyes. But it was still caught by Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's heart jerked, and he suddenly felt that the arrival of this mortal Emperor Chu was probably not so simple. Fourth Imperial brother, there's something you don't know, but this unfilial son actually dared to poison me, his father. Tell me, should such an unfilial son be killed? The emperor took a deep breath, and his tone was hurried and incomparably agitated. Unfilial son? Mortal Emperor Chu's dignified tiger brows raised as he indifferently said, then what if he isn't your son? Fourth Imperial brother, what do you mean by this? The emperor's face slightly went grim, and his fierce gaze descended onto Mortal Emperor Chu. Son, tell him. Mortal Emperor Chu calmly looked at the emperor as he indifferently spoke. Meanwhile, the fifth prince, Chu Sun, directly stood up and respectfully bowed to Mortal Emperor Chu. Yes, Imperial father. Silence. Following Chu Sun's words, the scene went deathly silent. The fifth prince addressed Mortal Emperor Chu as Imperial father? What the heck is going on? Chapter 228. As expected. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he suddenly understood. When Mortal Emperor Chu appeared, Duan Lingtian discovered that the atmosphere was somewhat off. First of all, human Emperor Chu seemed to be very dissatisfied with the emperor. Secondly, the fifth prince, Chu Sun, who was originally kneeling there and begging for mercy, heaved a sigh of relief when Mortal Emperor Chu appeared, as if he'd seen his savior. But even then, Duan Lingtian never imagined that the fifth prince and Mortal Emperor Chu were actually father and son. Didn't that mean that this fifth prince was born from the adultery of the mortal emperor of Chu and the emperor's favorite concubine? Things seemed to have gotten a little complicated. The emperor was so angry that his pupils constricted. He pointed his finger at Renhuang Chu and Chu Sun, and was somewhat unable to breathe. Royal brother, Sun, doesn't know anything about medicine. He poisoned you with a prescription that I gave him. Mortal Emperor Chu gazed at the emperor with a calm gaze, as if he was speaking of an unimportant matter. All these years I've protected the imperial family, and I have no other request. I only hope that my only son can ascend the throne. But unfortunately, Imperial brother, you're too greedy for power. You're already over 60 years old, yet you're still unwilling to give up your throne. His only son. Mortal Emperor Chu's words caused the emperor's face to turn ashen. This bastard was born of you and that bitch? Thinking about how he had been cuckolded for so many years, the emperor felt a sense of uneasiness in his chest. Old man, don't insult my mother. Chu Sun coldly glanced at the emperor. Since things had already come to this, he no longer hid anything. Ha. The emperor started laughing loudly, laughing madly, and only after a long time did his laughter stop. He looked at Mortal Emperor Chu and said in a cold voice, Fourth Imperial brother, you've shed all pretense of cordiality with me today for the sake of this animal. It shouldn't be as simple as just protecting his life, right? Renhuang Chu took a deep look at the emperor. Imperial brother, I've come here today in hopes that you can abdicate your position. Abdicate? Mortal Emperor Chu's words caused another stir. Even Duan Lingdan never imagined that this Mortal Emperor Chu would be so deranged. What if I'm not willing? The emperor said in a deep voice, his eyes cold. Brother, you are a smart person. Mortal Emperor Chu spoke indifferently, and within his calm tone was a sense of coercion. What? Fourth Imperial brother, are you trying to force me to abdicate? The emperor suddenly laughed, and the coldness on his face became even more apparent, as if he was covered with a layer of frost. So what? Mortal Emperor Chu had a carefree expression, not putting the emperor in his eyes at all. How dare you? The emperor's face darkened as he shouted coldly. Just at this moment, Mortal Emperor Chu ignored the emperor. He seemed to have noticed something and looked outside the throne room. At the same time, Xiong Quan, who was beside Duan Lingtian, also looked outside. Shortly after, the Divine Might Marquis Manor's old Marquis and Marquis Manor also looked outside. A handsome figure slowly walked in. He wore a silk scarf on his head and held a feather fan in his hand. The person who came was an elegant middle-aged man. He walked in slowly and stood behind the emperor. When the emperor saw the elegant middle-aged man, he heaved a sigh of relief. Dean Sima, a wise man submits to circumstances. Could it be that you think you alone are sufficient to go against me? Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto the elegant middle-aged man, and his voice contained gloominess mixed within. Dean Sima? Duan Lingtian revealed a surprised expression. The middle-aged man that appeared now was none other than his teacher in Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind Department, Sima Changfeng. Now, this mortal Emperor Chu addressed Sima Changfeng as Dean? Could it be that this teacher Sima of his was that elusive Dean of Paladin Academy? If it was really like this, then this Dean had concealed himself too deeply. Your Majesty Mortal Emperor, stop. Sima Changfeng looked at Mortal Emperor Chu and said indifferently, His Majesty the Emperor is the legitimate heir of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial family. If you want to force him to abdicate, not to mention me, even the old Marquis would probably not stand by idly. Old Marquis? Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto the old man sitting at the side, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Not to mention the old Marquis being poisoned by the dark nether mink and is unable to use his origin energy. Even if the old Marquis wasn't poisoned, so what? Could it be that you think the two of you joining forces is sufficient to go against me? As he spoke up to hear, Mortal Emperor Chu's face revealed an arrogant expression. Ah! Your Majesty Mortal Emperor is indeed worthy of being the imperial family's rare genius in the martial Tao. The old man sitting at the side couldn't help but laugh. Old Marquis, I hope your divine might Marquis estate doesn't interfere in today's matter. Otherwise, don't blame the Mortal Emperor for not showing mercy. Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the old Marquis, and his tone contained no lack of threatening intent. The old Marquis hadn't spoken when the divine might Marquis Nye Yuan had already taken a step forward. Your Majesty Mortal Emperor, the divine might Marquis estate only respects the legitimate heir of the imperial family. If you really want to force the emperor to abdicate, then that's treason. I Nye Yuan will be the first to stand out and share your Majesty's burden and kill the traitor. Good. Divine might Marquis, my trust in you wasn't in vain. The emperor revealed a gratified smile when he saw the attitude of the divine might Marquis. Although I, Duan Lingtian, am untalented, I'm indebted to your Majesty's great kindness and am willing to serve your Majesty. Duan Lingtian expressed his stance as well. Your Duan Lingtian? Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. You don't have the qualifications to choose. Whether I have the qualifications to choose or not isn't something for your Majesty Mortal Emperor to worry about. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently. Duan Lingtian, you're presumptuous. Chu Sun's face sank as he shouted in a low voice. Duan Lingtian looked at Chu Sun and said with a smile, Fifth Prince? Oh no, you're not the fifth prince anymore. Chu Sun's face went grim, and the killing intent in his eyes was piercingly cold. Duan Lingtian, you've lost for sure today. I'll capture you and send you before my cousin, and let her personally tear you into 1,000 pieces. What? Fifth Prince, you're so confident that you'll win for sure? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he smiled indifferently. You'll know very soon. After today, I, Chu Sun, will become the new emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Chu Sun's gaze became fervent, as if he'd seen the scene of himself ruling over the world. Wishful thinking. The emperor sneered. Imperial brother, whether it's wishful thinking or not, you'll know very soon. Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze swept past everyone present, and in the end, it descended onto Prime Minister Gu Yuting. Prime Minister Gu, you have great talent and strategy, so I'll give you two choices. 1. Accompany this old fellow to die. 2. Serve my son and assist my son in governing the Crimson Sky Kingdom. When Gu Yuting saw Mortal Emperor Chu look over, he knew that he had to make a choice. Now, he could notice that the emperor's gaze was looking at him as well. For a moment he was in a difficult position. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Right at this moment, numerous black figures flashed in from outside the throne room and descended behind Mortal Emperor Chu. There was a total of 8 people and all of them were old men. They wore black clothes and had cold and indifferent gazes. It was precisely Mortal Emperor Chu's specter guards. Your Majesty, we've already dealt with those stubborn half-step void stage revered elders. One of the specter guards reported to Mortal Emperor Chu. Prime Minister Gu, what's your choice? Mortal Emperor Chu looked at Gu Yuting and asked once more, and his tone contained slight impatience. Your Majesty, I'm sorry. Gu Yuting didn't hesitate any longer when he saw the arrival of the specter guards. He spoke to the emperor, and in the next moment, his entire body flashed towards Mortal Emperor Chu. But even though his speed was fast, someone was even faster than him. Bang! Sima Changfeng behind the emperor raised his hand, and an origin energy palm print that carried along a trace of terrifying aura instantly descended onto Gu Yuting, killing Gu Yuting. Sima Changfeng. Mortal Emperor Chu's face sank, and his white robe and long hair fluttered without wind, as he was enraged to the limit. Whoosh! Sima Changfeng moved, flashing directly towards mortal Emperor Chu with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. Above Sima Changfeng, 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form with a vast impetus, second level of the void-prying stage. Duan Lingtian was surprised, as he never imagined that this teacher Sima's strength would be so strong. Umph! Mortal Emperor Chu's face revealed disdain when faced with Sima Changfeng flashing over. His body lightly trembled, and 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him, third level of the void-prying stage. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted when he saw this scene. As expected of the publicly acknowledged strongest void-prying stage martial artist in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, this Duan Ren Huang was actually a third-level void-prying stage expert. Dean Sima, this old fellow will assist you. The old man that had always been sitting there made a move as well, revealing his cultivation at the second level of the void-prying stage. Father, be careful. Nie Yuan's figure flashed out to join the battle, and 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him. Obviously, Nie Yuan had already broken through to the first level of the void-prying stage. For a time the throne room shook. The movements of the four great void-prying stage experts fighting were so swift that it caused one's eyes to be dazzled, and they were utterly unable to see clearly. At least, Duan Lingtian didn't see clearly in the slightest. However, the only thing he was able to discern was that even though it was 3 against 1, mortal Emperor Chu still occupied the upper hand. Senior Marquis, looks like your dark nether minx poison has been cured. Nie Yuan, I truly never imagined that you've stepped into the void-prying stage as well. Mortal Emperor Chu's voice contained slight astonishment mixed within. In next to no time, the feather fan in Sima Changfeng's hand flashed out, revealing the strength of a grade 7 spirit weapon. The Divine Might Marquis and his son each withdrew a grade 7 spirit weapon as well. So what if it's a spirit weapon? 3 void-prying stage martial artists and only 2 have comprehended force. I'll let all of you experience advanced force. A dark blue 3-foot-long blade appeared in mortal Emperor Chu's hand. Whoosh! Everywhere the 3-foot-long blade passed, the attacks of Sima Changfeng's group of 3 were directly disintegrated as easily as crushing dry weeds. A single sword strike shocked the world. Advanced sword force. The senior Marquis exclaimed in surprise, then shouted out explosively. Retreat. Instantly, the 3 of them hurriedly flashed back to avoid mortal Emperor Chu's sword strike, as they didn't dare fight it head-on. Spectre guards, listen to my orders. Capture Duan Lingtian alive and kill everyone else. Meanwhile, Chu Sun gave the order. Chapter 229. 8 Spectre guards were 8 half-step void stage experts. Now they pounced towards Duan Lingtian's group like hungry wolves pouncing on their prey. Umph! A light cold snort sounded out, and a strand of azure sword light appeared gracefully. Whoosh! Only a strand of sword light flashed past, and the 8 Spectre guards that charged over died before they could even start a slaughter. In the sky, 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed before vanishing. Besides Duan Lingtian and the group of embroidered uniform guards behind him, the gazes of everyone else descended onto Xiong Quan, who was by Duan Lingtian's side. They never imagined that Duan Lingtian actually had a void-prying stage expert by his side, and it was even a second-level void-prying stage expert. 3 second-level void-prying stage experts, 1 first-level void-prying stage expert. Very good, all of you can come at me together. Mortal Emperor Chu laughed heartily, and his words were filled with overbearingness. I alone am enough to kill you. Xiong Quan's voice contained a sense of calmness mixed within, and he walked out in large strides, arriving nearby mortal Emperor Chu in the blink of an eye. Just by relying on you, a second-level void-prying stage martial artist? Mortal Emperor Chu sneered, and the dark blue grade 7 spirit sword in his hand flashed out to stab towards Xiong Quan, giving rise to a wave of ear-piercing howls. Relying on the grade 7 spirit sword, the 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes above mortal Emperor Chu instantly increased to around 5,100 ancient mammoth silhouettes. This wasn't the end. Along with a strand of mysterious and profound aura appearing on the 3-foot-long blade in his hand, the ancient mammoth silhouettes above him once again increased by around 500 ancient mammoth silhouettes. Mortal Emperor Chu attacked with his full strength, drawing upon the energy of heaven and earth to develop around 5,600 ancient mammoth silhouettes. His strength was shocking. Besides a spirit weapon, there's an additional strength of 500 ancient mammoths? The memories of Samsara Emperor Wu flashed within Duan Lingtian's mind, and he quickly came to a sudden understanding. He knew that the additional strength of 500 ancient mammoths that mortal Emperor Chu had now was the extra strength from half-step advanced force. Force was an existence that only existences at the void prying stage and above could come into contact with. Force was divided into 3 levels: elementary force, half-step advanced force, and advanced force. Amongst them, elementary comprehension force was able to increase the strength of 200 ancient mammoths. Half-step advanced force was able to provide an additional strength of 500 ancient mammoths. As for minute subtlety, whoosh, Xiongquan also moved. His sword whistled out. Facing mortal Emperor Chu, who attacked with his full strength and displayed half-step advanced sword force, he was fearless. Through the amplification of the Grade 7 spirit weapon, the 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes above Xiongquan had instantly increased to nearly 3,900. Right at this moment, a strand of an aura that was even more mysterious and powerful than the aura of mortal Chu's sword leaped out from the 3-foot-long blade in Xiongquan's hand. Instantly, the ancient mammoth silhouettes above Xiongquan once again increased by an entire 2,000. When he attacked with his full strength, he erupted with the strength of almost 5,900 ancient mammoths. Advanced sword force. Mortal Emperor Chu was originally full of confidence, but when he noticed the terrifying aura on Xiongquan's sword and saw the almost 5,900 ancient mammoth silhouettes that dashed out above Xiongquan, his face went ghastly pale. At this moment, the figures of Xiongquan and mortal Emperor Chu passed by each other. A stream of blood splattered into the air. Xiongquan was motionless like a mountain and wasn't injured in the slightest. Mortal Emperor Chu's chest was penetrated, and the Grade 7 spirit sword in his hand was even blasted flying. Bang! Mortal Emperor Chu's body crashed onto the ground. The strength of almost 5,900 ancient mammoths that Xiongquan exerted completely crushed mortal Emperor Chu's strength of around 5,600 ancient mammoths. How is this possible? Advanced sword force? Mortal Emperor Chu struggled as he stared at Xiongquan with a face full of disbelief, unwilling to believe that everything that happened earlier was real. He felt that even in the entire Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, his half-step advanced sword force could already be considered to be extremely rare amongst martial artists below the 4th level of the void prying stage. But the person before him was only at the 2nd level of the void prying stage, and had comprehended true advanced sword force. Half-step advanced force only increased the strength of 500 ancient mammoths. However, advanced force was instead able to increase the strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths. The two of them weren't on the same level at all. Mortal Emperor Chu died with a heart filled with unwillingness and regret. Imperial Father. Chu Sun cried out in grief. His pupils stared wide open, and his body lightly trembled, unwilling to believe that all this was real. At this moment he felt as if the sky was about to collapse. The path before his eyes was dim without light. Within the throne room, only Chu Sun's sorrowful cries remained. Besides Duan Lingtian, the gazes of the remaining people all descended onto Xiongquan. After a long time. May I ask if mortal Emperor Chu's sword force is still advanced sword force? Sima Changfeng looked at Xiongquan, and was rather fearful of this expert that was able to kill mortal Emperor Chu with a single sword strike. Of course not. Xiongquan calmly glanced at Sima Changfeng and slowly said, his sword force is only at the half-step advanced stage. Although there is only a difference of 1 level between half-step advanced stage and advanced stage, the difference is like the difference between heaven and earth. The sword force I executed earlier is the true advanced sword force. Sima Changfeng nodded and came to a sudden understanding. The difference was indeed like the difference between heaven and earth. A difference of an entire 1,500 ancient mammoths. This is the strength of the void stage. Although in the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu, this wasn't a big deal, Duan Lingtian was still slightly excited in his heart, and traces of yearning were emitted from his eyes. Imperial Father. Chu Sun was currently lying on mortal Emperor Chu's body with a dim expression. Duan Lingtian walked over in large strides, and he didn't pay attention to Chu Sun, who retreated in fear. He directly put away the Grade 7 spirit weapon and spatial ring on mortal Emperor Chu, then he went to put away the spatial rings of the 8 specter guards. After putting away all the spoils of the battle into the spatial rings, Duan Lingtian laughed slyly, then looked at Sima Changfeng and the Emperor. Teacher Sima, Your Majesty, these spoils of the battle belong to me. You don't mind, right? Kid, you've already put them away. Is there any use in us saying we mind? Sima Changfeng shook his head and said angrily. Duan Lingtian laughed embarrassedly. These spoils of the battle belong to the expert by your side, so they ought to belong to you. The emperor recovered from his shock, and his gaze flickered with a bright light that never left Xiongquan's side. Only when Xiongquan coldly snorted and coldly swept a glance at the emperor did the emperor withdraw his gaze somewhat embarrassedly. Commander Duan, I truly envy you for having such an expert as your follower. The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian and lightly smiled. Your Majesty is too kind. I wonder how I should deal with these two people? Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the dejected Chu Sun and the ghastly pale white-browed old man. Whoosh! Practically at the same time Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the emperor moved. In the blink of an eye, Chu Sun and the white-browed old man were personally killed by the emperor. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted. He never imagined that the emperor was actually in existence at the half-step void stage. When he saw the emperor return to the throne, Duan Lingtian's gaze shone as it descended onto Chu Sun and the white-browed old man's spatial rings. Your Majesty there, just take it. The emperor shook his head. Commander Duan, are you very short of money? After Duan Lingtian put away Chu Sun and the white-browed old man's spatial rings, he nodded. That's right, very short of money. The emperor nodded, and his eyes flickered as he slowly said, Commander Duan, today's matter is all thanks to you. If it wasn't for you, perhaps I, the emperor, wouldn't exist. I'll bestow you with 10 million gold, how about it? 10 million gold? Duan Lingtian's breathing became hurried. 10 million gold was equivalent to 1 billion silver. Thank you, Your Majesty. Duan Lingtian hurriedly expressed his thanks. You little fellow, you're really a miser. The old man from the Divine Might Marquis estate shook his head and smiled, and his gaze occasionally flashed past Xiongquan. He was extremely surprised that Duan Lingtian had such a formidable existence by his side. Although Nie Yuan didn't say anything, he was similarly shocked. Alas! Suddenly the emperor let out a long sigh. Through today's matter, I finally realized that it's time to abdicate. Senior Marquis Dean Sima, Divine Might Marquis, who do you think I should let inherit the imperial family and become the new emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Your Majesty, it's better for you to decide this yourself. Sima Changfeng hurriedly said. Dean Sima is right. If Your Majesty really doesn't know who to pass the throne to, you can carry out a test for the princes, and the one that passes will inherit the imperial family. The senior marquis slowly said. No matter who inherits the imperial family, Nie Yuan will surely sacrifice his life for it. Nie Yuan expressed his stance. Divine Might Marquis, I haven't congratulated you for successfully breaking through to the void prying stage. Alas, I wonder if I'll be able to break through to the void prying stage in my lifetime. After I abdicate this time, I should properly study the martial Tao. After today's matter, the emperor seemed to have suddenly been enlightened and was able to see things through. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian's group bid their farewells and left. Teacher Sima, I really never imagined that you were actually the Dean of Paladin Academy. After leaving the throne room, Duan Lingtian looked at Sima Changfeng with a face full of emotion. As far as he was concerned, Sima Changfeng ought to be the fourth void stage expert hidden within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. As for the Divine Might Marquis Nie Yuan, he'd only broken through recently. I never imagined that you had such an expert by your side. Today, if it wasn't for him, even if the Senior Marquis Divine Might Marquis and I joined forces, it would still be difficult to subdue mortal Emperor Chu. Sima Changfeng glanced at Xiongquan who was beside Duan Lingtian and sighed with emotion. Little Tian this is? Nie Yuan glanced at Xiongquan as he asked Duan Lingtian curiously. Duan Lingtian hadn't spoken when Xiongquan spoke first. I'm the young master's servant. Servant? Nie Yuan was dumbstruck when they heard Xiongquan, Sima Changfeng was dumbstruck, and the nearby senior marquis was dumbstruck as well. This second-level void prying stage expert that had comprehended advanced sword force and was capable of defeating a third-level void prying stage expert actually called himself Duan Lingtian's servant? Has this world gone mad? Even the group of embroidered uniform guards couldn't help but feel ashamed. Although they'd witnessed how terrifying Xiongquan was at the fifth prince's estate and knew that Xiongquan addressed Duan Lingtian as young master. But they never imagined that Xiongquan was Duan Lingtian's servant. Is there a need to be so surprised? Duan Lingtian rubbed his nose when he saw the expressions of the group of people. Chapter 230. No matter what, with the death of mortal Emperor Chu, the imperial family finally recovered its calm. As for the rest of the matter, it had nothing to do with Duan Lingtian. The matter this time was too shocking, so the emperor sealed off the news and didn't allow the news to spread. The imperial city was still peaceful. Since returning from the imperial palace that day, Duan Lingtian had returned the 12 members of the embroidered uniform guard, including Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, to the Divine Might Marquis estate. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had followed Duan Lingtian for such a long time, and Duan Lingtian had taught them everything he could. It could be considered that he'd fulfilled his promise to the Divine Might Marquis that day. Half a month later, the emperor once again summoned Duan Lingtian. When Duan Lingtian saw the large stack of gold bills before him, his eyes shone. Every single one of these gold bills was of a denomination of 10,000 gold. A total of 1,000. 10 million gold. Without the slightest hesitation, Duan Lingtian put away all the gold bills, then looked at the emperor. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Commander Duan, I heard the Divine Might Marquis say that you returned the 12 members of your embroidered uniform guard to him?" "You." The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian with a curious expression, as he didn't know why Duan Lingtian would do this. "Your Majesty, actually, when I asked you to set up the embroidered uniform guard for me that day, I only wanted to play around. Now I've played enough, so I ask Your Majesty to disband this organization. Besides that, the antidote medicinal pill I gave Your Majesty that day was actually reserved. I'm still confident in directly curing Your Majesty's poison." As Duan Lingtian spoke, he passed a complete grade 9 spirit cleansing pill to the emperor. After the emperor consumed it and dissolved the medicinal strength, he noticed that the poison in his body was completely cured, and his face couldn't help but emit a shocked expression. The emperor glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. "Commander Duan, looks like you really did reserve some of your strength to me in the past." Duan Lingtian laughed embarrassedly. "Why don't you continue to reserve some of your strength now?" the emperor asked curiously. "Your Majesty, there's no meaning in me continuing to hold back now. I'm preparing to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom soon." Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, his eyes revealing traces of expectation. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? The emperor was shocked but soon recovered and nodded. With Commander Duan's natural talent, staying in the Crimson Sky Kingdom is indeed a waste of talent. However, I will preserve the Embroidered Uniform Guard organization. When Commander Duan is tired outside, the Crimson Sky Kingdom will always welcome you back. At that time, no matter who the emperor is, you'll still be the one and only commander of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Embroidered Uniform Guard. This is my promise to you. Thank you, Your Majesty. Duan Lingtian quickly thanked him. Also, before you leave, if you have any needs, you can tell us. We will satisfy your requests. The emperor added. Duan Lingtian thanked him again. Right. The emperor suddenly looked at Duan Lingtian, and his gaze became slightly dubious. Commander Duan, I wonder what you think of my daughter, Bai Yao? Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Princess Bai Yao is beautiful and moving, like a celestial maiden that has fallen into the mortal world. She's one of the few beauties I've seen. Then if I betroth Princess Bai Yao to you, will you agree? The emperor glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian and asked. Duan Lingtian was stunned, as he never imagined that the emperor would be so direct. Your Majesty, you don't know, but I already have 2 fiancées at home. As for Princess Bai Yao, I don't have that kind of feeling towards her for now, and it's more like a friendship between friends. I understand. The emperor nodded. Not long after Duan Lingtian left, a beautiful figure arrived at the throne room and looked at the emperor. Imperial father, what did he say? The emperor sighed. Bai Yao, he said he doesn't have that kind of feeling towards you for now, and it's more like a friendship between friends. Did he really say that? The beautiful figure lightly trembled, and her voice that was like a silver bell had a trace of bitterness mixed within. After Duan Lingtian left the imperial palace, he went to buy 5 Fergana horses. At noon that day, Duan Lingtian, Li Rou, Li Fei Ke, and Xiong Quan each rode a Fergana horse and left the imperial city, heading directly towards Swallow Mountain County. This time, Duan Lingtian intended to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom for the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and he didn't know when he would be able to return. So, Duan Lingtian intended to return to Fresh Breeze Town's Li clan to take a look, and it could be considered as returning home in glory. After that, he'd accompany Li Fei to visit her grandfather at the Aurora City's Li clan. An ordinary horse would require half a year to complete the journey, but a Fergana horse only required 2 months. 2 months later, Duan Lingtian's group walked on the public road outside Aurora City, but they didn't enter Aurora City. Instead, they continued forward and headed towards the Fresh Breeze Townsley clan. They wouldn't be able to stay in the Fresh Breeze Townsley clan for long, at most for one night. It was the same for returning to the Aurora Cities Li clan tomorrow. This was also the first time that Li Fei was returning to Fresh Breeze Town with Duan Lingtian. Li Fei's heart was filled with curiosity and yearning towards the place where Duan Lingtian grew up. Fresh Breeze Town was still the same Fresh Breeze Town as before. Duan Lingtian's group of 5 spurred their horses as they walked into Fresh Breeze Town, and everywhere they passed, they attracted the gazes of everyone. After all, 5 Fergana horses were too shocking. 5 Fergana horses were equivalent to 50,000 gold and 5 million silver. This amount of money wasn't much in the eyes of the current Duan Lingtian, but to the people of Fresh Breeze Town, it was an astronomical figure. Who are they? The group of Fresh Breeze Town residents were surprised. That looks like Duan Lingtian. In next to no time someone recognized Duan Lingtian. Although 3 years had passed and the childishness on Duan Lingtian's face had completely faded away, Duan Lingtian's appearance hadn't changed much. It's really Duan Lingtian. I didn't expect him to come back again. Yeah, the last time he came back he annihilated the Fong family. This time he wouldn't be thinking of annihilating the Chen family and letting the Li clan dominate the city, right? It's possible. The Li clan is really lucky to have produced such an outstanding disciple like Duan Lingtian, and even went to the Aurora Cities Li clan. For a moment, the group of Fresh Breeze Town residents discussed animatedly. However, they didn't connect the Duan Lingtian with the other Duan Lingtian that had recently been the talk of the town. After all, in their opinion, it was already not bad that Duan Lingtian could go to Aurora City. They never thought that the Duan Lingtian from the Imperial City would be the same person as the Duan Lingtian from Fresh Breeze Town. Hearing the words of the group of Fresh Breeze Town residents, the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. Annihilate the Qin family? In the eyes of these people, was he such a violent person? Kerr and Li Fei, who were riding beside Duan Lingtian, had long since covered their mouths and laughed lightly. Let's go home. Duan Lingtian urged his horse forward and directly went to the Li clan's mansion. When the members of the Li clan found out that Duan Lingtian had returned, they all came out to welcome him. Below the patriarch, Li Nanfeng, all the elders in the Li clan's mansion had all come out to welcome him. Patriarch elders. Duan Lingtian greeted the patriarch and the Li clan elders. It's good that you're back. Come in quickly. Li Nanfeng and the others welcomed Duan Lingtian and the others in. Following the return of Duan Lingtian, the entire Li clan's mansion was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, bustling as if it was the new year. Fifth elder, where's Li Xian? After catching up with each other, Duan Lingtian still hadn't seen the little fatty, Li Xian, and felt that it was somewhat strange. Logically speaking, if the little fatty knew that he had returned, he should have run over at the first possible moment. Fifth elder Li Ting smiled. Li Xian went to the Aurora Cities Li clan 2 years ago. What? You didn't come back from there? Duan Lingtian shook his head. No, we didn't. We came back from the Imperial City and directly returned to Fresh Breeze Town. We plan to go to Aurora City tomorrow. You're leaving tomorrow? Li Ting was slightly surprised. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded and lightly smiled. Now that you mention it, I came back this time to bid farewell to the patriarch and elders. Bid farewell? For a moment, all the higher-ups of the Li clan were slightly puzzled. I intend to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Duan Lingtian explained. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Duan Lingtian's words caused the patriarch, Li Nanfeng, and the group of Li clan elders to be shocked. The little fellow that only started to display natural talent 3 years ago was now about to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the even vaster stage of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? Duan Lingtian, your current cultivation. Li Nanfeng looked at Duan Lingtian and asked with slight hesitation. 3rd level of the Origin Core stage. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and slowly said. Instantly, all the higher-ups of the Li clan were dumbstruck and were unable to recover from their shock for a long time. What? Li Nanfeng was slightly speechless, then he glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, you're the same person as the Duan Lingtian that's been giving rise to much discussion in the Crimson Sky Kingdom recently? Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Whoosh. A single stone gave rise to 1,000 ripples, and all the higher-ups of the Li clan were once again stunned. A direct descendant of the Duan clan. The #1 genius of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation. The embroidered uniform guard's commander. It was actually the youth that came from their fresh breeze Townsley clan? They felt a wave of excitement in their hearts. In that case your father is that Duan Ruffing. Li Nanfeng sighed. No wonder I never heard your mother mention your father. So it turns out that your father was once a peerless genius like you, whose name spread throughout the Crimson Sky Kingdom? However, you're even more abnormal than your father at that time. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, then he withdrew a large stack of silver from his pocket and passed it to Li Nanfeng. Patriarch, here's 10 million silver. It's a small token of my appreciation to the clan. Li Nanfeng didn't accept it. Duan Lingtian, if you're going to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, you'll surely have to join one of those large sects. The competition between large sects will surely be intense, so you should keep this money to buy medicinal pills and cultivate properly. Exactly. Yeah, you can keep it for yourself. Currently, most of the businesses in Fresh Breeze Town are in the hands of our Li clan. We don't lack money. The other elders persuaded him one after another. In the end, Duan Lingtian was truly helpless and could only keep the money. He could feel that the group of people before him really wanted the best for him, and it caused a trace of warmth to arise within his heart. That night, Duan Lingtian stayed in his own courtyard. There were 3 rooms in the courtyard. His mother, Li Ro, stayed in her own room. Duan Lingtian brought Kerr and Li Fei to stay in Kerr's room. Chapter 231. Deep into the night, Duan Lingtian hugged the 2 girls and fell into a deep sleep. Wah! A sound entered his ears. Duan Lingtian's spiritual energy shook and he instantly woke up. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the entire courtyard was ablaze with flames. Who's there? At this time, Duan Lingtian heard Xiong Quan's shout, followed by the sound of someone breaking through the door. Kerr and Li Fei also woke up when they heard the sound. The 3 of them put on their clothes and walked out of the room. They discovered that Li Ro had also come out. Tian, are you all okay? Li Ro looked at Duan Lingtian and the other 2 and asked with concern. Mother, I'm fine. Xiong Quan seems to have chased after them. Let's go out too. Although the entire courtyard was on fire, with the speed of Duan Lingtian and the other 3, they were still able to easily pass through the surrounding flames. Soon Xiong Quan returned. In his hand he was carrying a person. It was a young man. With just a glance, Duan Lingtian recognized this young man. Li Xian. Li Xian, the son of the former 7th elder, Li Kuan. Duan Lingtian's face was gloomy. When he left Fresh Breeze Town that year, he didn't plan to find trouble with this Li Xian again. Now this Li Xian was still stubborn and wanted to find trouble with him. Duan Lingtian, you actually didn't burn to death. When Li Xian saw that Duan Lingtian and the others were safe and sound, his eyes were bloodshot and his face was filled with unwillingness. At this time the sound of disorderly footsteps could be heard. It was the patriarch, Li Nanfeng, and the other elders rushing over. Many of the Li family members also rushed over, carrying buckets of water in their hands. They rushed over to help Duan Lingtian extinguish the fire in the courtyard. Unfortunately, the fire had already burned to a certain extent and couldn't be extinguished. In the end, the entire courtyard was turned into ashes. Duan Lingtian clenched his fists, killing intent flickering in his eyes. This courtyard contained far too many memories. Now it was all gone. Ah. Duan Lingtian, are you angry? I just want to make you angry. You're the one who ruined my brother. My father must have died because of you. I want to avenge them. I want to avenge them. Li Xian laughed when he saw Duan Lingtian's expression. Li Xian, you're courting death. Duan Lingtian's eyes turned cold as he stared at Li Xian. Leave this matter to the family head. Li Ro said to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did he realize that Patriarch Li Nanfeng and the other elders were also present. Duan Lingtian, don't worry. The family head will give you an explanation. Li Nanfeng's expression was extremely ugly. With Duan Lingtian's current status, the fact that he could still visit them meant that Duan Lingtian still considered himself a member of the Li family. Now Duan Lingtian had only returned to stay for one night, and Li Xian had actually set fire to it. This had crossed his bottom line. That's right, Duan Lingtian. We will give you an explanation. The Li family elders also expressed their stance. They looked at Li Xian with murderous eyes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Soon, Duan Lingtian and the others stayed in the courtyard that Patriarch Li Nanfeng had arranged for them. As for Li Xian's matter, he believed that the Patriarch would be able to handle it properly, so he didn't think too much about it. The next morning Duan Lingtian woke up. He woke up the two girls and walked around the Li family's mansion. He didn't know when he would return after leaving this time. I heard that Li Xen was executed by the patriarch. He deserved it. He bumped into the muzzle of a gun. That's right. Duan Lingtian is the pride of our Li family. That Li Xen actually dared to provoke him. He's simply courting death. Hearing the Li family's discussion, Duan Lingtian was a bit surprised. He didn't expect that the patriarch and the elders would give him such a straightforward explanation. After breakfast, Duan Lingtian bid farewell to the Li family's upper echelons. Patriarch Li Nanfeng and the elders personally sent Duan Lingtian and the others out of Fresh Breeze Town. After watching Duan Lingtian leave, they turned around and returned. Riding on a Fergana horse, Duan Lingtian and the others arrived at Aurora City in less than 2 hours. They directly returned to the Li family's mansion. Li Ro and Kerr returned to the courtyard they used to live in. Duan Lingtian brought Xiong Quan and Li Fei to her home. Not long after arriving at Li Fei's courtyard, Duan Lingtian saw Patriarch Li Ao bring a group of elders over. Duan Lingtian. Li Ao had a face full of smiles when he saw Duan Lingtian again. He was shocked by Duan Lingtian's accomplishments, but at the same time he was also gratified. After all, Duan Lingtian came from their Li family. Now that they knew that a figure like Duan Lingtian had appeared in their Li family, the few large families in the nearby cities all intentionally befriended the Li family. Moreover, the Li family also obtained many benefits from this. As far as he was concerned, all of this was due to Duan Lingtian's contribution. Patriarch. Duan Lingtian smiled at Li Ao before greeting the other elders, although he didn't know most of these elders. Scoundrel, something happened to grandfather. Just at this moment, Li Fei's anxious voice sounded, and it carried a trace of sobbing. What's wrong? Duan Lingtian's expression was slightly serious as he looked at Li Fei. Li Fei passed a letter in her hand to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian opened it and read, Fei, if you come back and see this letter that grandfather left behind, grandfather should already be gone. Actually, I've long wanted to help teacher do something. But because of your existence, grandfather couldn't make up his mind. Now that you have Lingtian to take care of you, grandfather can be at ease. I want to go to a place to find the person that once bet his life with teacher on equipment refinement and caused teacher to die tragically. I'll make him bet his life with me on equipment refinement and take revenge for teacher. This is the only thing I can do for teacher. That year, if it wasn't for teacher saving me, I would have died long ago. If you see this letter, don't be sad. Grandfather's death was worth it. After reading the letter, Duan Lingtian's expression was incomparably gloomy. What's wrong? Li Ao also felt that something was wrong and asked. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath before passing the letter in his hand to Li Ao. After Li Ao read it, his expression changed greatly. Elder Li De left a year ago. At that time he only said that he was going on a long trip. I didn't expect. A year ago? Duan Lingtian's expression changed and he looked at Li Fei with slight worry. Scoundrel. Li Fei threw herself into Duan Lingtian's embrace and started crying bitterly. Duan Lingtian lightly patted Li Fei's back, and his eyes went cold as he looked at Li Ao and asked, Patriarch, do you know where Elder Li De went? Li Ao shook his head. I don't know. I even didn't know that Elder Li De had a teacher. But betting his life with equipment refinement is a clue. After all, this sort of thing doesn't happen often. So long as we spend some time, we should be able to find out. I'll send someone to investigate right now. Thank you, Patriarch. Duan Lingtian nodded gratefully. Li Ao brought along the group of Li clan elders and left in a hurry. Orders were passed down one after another. The Li clan attached great importance to this matter. In the eyes of the Li clan higher-ups, although Duan Lingtian was only a disciple with a different surname, he was the pride of the Li clan. Coupled with Duan Lingtian's current status in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, even if they only wanted to curry favor with Duan Lingtian, they would spare no effort to help Duan Lingtian. Little Fei, don't worry. Maybe Grandpa won? Duan Lingtian consoled Li Fei. Grandpa has already left for a year. If he won, he would have returned long ago. Li Fei cried as she spoke. Maybe Grandpa won and is in a good mood, so he went around for a stroll. Don't worry until you're sure, okay? Under Duan Lingtian's consolation, Li Fei's expression finally eased up. Scoundrel, if Grandpa loses, you must help me take revenge for Grandpa. Li Fei's beautiful eyes squinted as killing intent flickered within. Don't worry. A trace of killing intent flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes as well, and he fiercely nodded. Li Fei's grandpa was his grandpa as well. Duan Tian brought Li Fei back to his own courtyard. When Li Ro and Ke heard about Li Fei's grandpa, they also started to comfort Li Fei. Duan Tian bid farewell to the three girls before leaving the Li family estate with Xiong Quan. He directly went to the trade market and found Tang Ying, the person in charge of the ghastly shadow assassin organization in Aurora City. "Kit, you're finally back." Tang Ying was slightly surprised when he saw Duan Tian, but he quickly noticed that Duan Tian's expression was extremely unsightly. "What's wrong? With your current status, what could still trouble you?" Presently, Duan Tian could be said to be known by everyone within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. "Tang Ying, I came to find you this time because I have something I need your help with." Duan Tian stated his intentions. "Speak." Tang Ying nodded. Duan Tian told him about Li De's matter. "I want you to use the Ghastly Shadows Intelligence Network to help me check if there's any place where a Grade 8 weapons craftsman gambled his life by forging weapons in the past year." "No problem." Tang Ying agreed. "Thank you." After Duan Tian left the medicine store, he went to the Lin family estate and found Lin Qi. "Duan Tian, you're now famous throughout the Crimson Sky Kingdom." When Lin Qi saw Duan Tian once again, his gaze was extremely complicated. The youth of the past had now grown to such an extent, leaving him in the dust. "Lin Qi, I came to find you this time because I have something I need your help with." Duan Tian stated his intentions. He came to find Lin Qi this time because he hoped to be able to ask the Violet Tulip Trading Company for information through Lin Qi. After Lin Qi heard the ins and outs of the matter, his expression became serious. "This is naturally not a problem. I'll go find the person in charge of the Violet Tulip Trading Company in Aurora City right now. I believe that with your current status and identity, my uncle and aunt will be very happy to help you." "Thank you." Duan Tian nodded. He wasn't in the Imperial City now, so besides the Li clan, the only forces he could use were the Ghastly Shadow and the Violet Tulip Trading Company. However, Duan Tian believed that with the involvement of the Ghastly Shadow and the Violet Tulip Trading Company, there ought to be a result soon. After leaving the Lin family estate, Duan Tian heaved a sigh of relief and returned to the Li family estate. Then he saw an acquaintance. Lian. Before Duan Tian came to the Li clan, this Lian was once in existence that was second only to Li Qing in the younger generation of the Li clan. Later on he had even set his sights on Ke. Chapter 232. Duan Tian. When Lian saw Duan Tian, he was slightly embarrassed. With Duan Tian's current identity and status, even if he had some little thoughts, he didn't dare to play any tricks in front of Duan Tian. The slightest carelessness might cause him to fall into a bottomless abyss. Duan Tian nodded indifferently. He didn't have any friendship with Lian, and instead had some conflicts. However, he couldn't be bothered to fuss about it and directly went home. Lian couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he saw Duan Tian leave. He was really worried that Duan Tian would look for him to settle old scores, but now it seemed that he was too petty. When Duan Tian returned home, he noticed a fat figure sitting there chatting with his mother. "Li Xian." Duan Tian walked into the courtyard and spoke with slight hesitation. "Li Xian should be about the same age now." "Ah, boss." The fatty turned around. Compared to the past, the immaturity on his chubby face had vanished without a trace. However, his small eyes were still so wretched. "Li Xian, you've grown up." Duan Tian looked at the fatty and couldn't help but laugh. Subsequently he replaced his mother, Li Ro, and started chatting with the fatty. "Boss, you're so awesome now. When I say you're my boss in the Li clan, no one dares to offend me." Li Xian said arrogantly, and his chubby face was filled with complacency. Duan Tian shook his head. "You little fatty, when did you learn how to intimidate others?" "Boss, you've fought for such a great reputation outside. If I don't make good use of it, wouldn't it be a waste of your efforts?" Li Xian said in all seriousness. "Can you be any more shameless?" Duan Tian rolled his eyes at Li Xian. As expected, this damned fatty was still as wretched as before. It made Duan Tian feel as if he'd returned to the days when he was in the Li family in Fresh Breeze Town. He still remembered. At that time, the son of the second elder was played by Li Xian to the point that he ran away whenever he saw Duan Tian. "Boss, tell me about what happened in the Imperial City." Li Xian was clearly very interested in the Duan Tian's experience in the Imperial City. Along with Duan Tian's narration, his small eyes flickered with bright lights. "Boss, why don't you take me to the Imperial City this time?" At that time, with you protecting me, wouldn't I be able to do whatever I want? At this point, Li Xian's face was filled with yearning. Duan Lingtian shook his head. I'm afraid I can't let you do as you wish. Once I'm done here, I won't be able to stay in the imperial city for long. Noticing Li Xian's bewildered expression, Duan Lingtian continued. I'm going to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Hearing this, Li Xian's chubby face fell. Then I can only continue to stay in Aurora City. In the following days, Duan Lingtian stayed in the Li clan and waited for news. Finally, a month later, Lin Qi brought back good news. Duan Lingtian, I found it. When Lin Qi arrived, he was gasping for breath. Obviously, he had rushed over as soon as he obtained the news. You found it? Duan Lingtian's eyes shone. Duan Lingtian, according to the information obtained by the Violet Tulip Trading Company, a year ago, a grade 8 weapons craftsman in the county city had a life and death bet with another person. In the end, the grade 8 spirit weapon that the former refined was of a higher quality than the opponent, and the opponent lost his life because of this. Lin Qi finished speaking in a single breath. At that time, this matter gave rise to much discussion in the county city, and my aunt knew as well. This time, when she found out that you were investigating this matter, she immediately sent someone to ride a Fergana horse to Aurora City to notify me. Do you know the origins of that weapons craftsman? Duan Lingtian's face sank and a trace of cold light flashed within his eyes as he asked. It seems to be someone from the county city's Chu family. Lin Qi continued. Chu family? Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he smiled gratefully at Lin Qi. Lin Qi, thank you. Don't mention it, we're all friends. Lin Qi shook his head and then said, Duan Lingtian, my aunt said that if you need any help, you can go look for her when you arrive at the county city. Don't worry, if I really need it, I won't be courteous. Duan Lingtian nodded. After Lin Qi left, Li Fei came out of the room and was slightly excited. Scoundrel, there's news? Yes, there's news. But I'm not sure if it's grandfather, so I'm preparing to make a trip to the county city to confirm it myself. Duan Lingtian nodded, and as he finished speaking, his gaze went slightly cold. If it's really grandfather, then that grade 8 weapons craftsman from the Chu family is dead for sure. I'll go with you, Li Fei said. Duan Lingtian didn't refuse because he knew that he couldn't refuse, nor did he have a reason to refuse. The person who was most concerned about this matter was undoubtedly Li Fei. Yes, I'll tell Kerr and mother that we'll bring Xiong Quan along and set out immediately. Duan Lingtian went to inform Kerr and Li Ro, then he left with Li Fei and Xiong Quan. The 3 Fergana horses transformed into a gust of wind as they left Aurora City. With the Fergana horses as their mounts, Duan Lingtian's group of 3 spent 7 days to arrive at the Swallow Mountain County's county city. The county city was larger than Aurora City, but was inferior to the imperial city. After entering the county city, there was an endless stream of carriages and horses. Duan Lingtian found an inn, and the 3 of them stayed there for the time being. After that, they found a restaurant nearby to have a meal. Li Fei didn't wear a veil, and everywhere she passed she attracted many burning gazes. However, although these people were envious, they didn't dare act rashly. They were able to discern that the violet-clothed young man walking with this young woman had an extraordinary bearing and was obviously not an ordinary person. Also, the middle-aged man following behind them was obviously not simple. Customer, what would you like to eat? Before long, an attendant arrived before Duan Lingtian's table and asked respectfully. Slap. Duan Lingtian raised his hand and took out a silver ingot. I want to ask you about some things. If you agree, then this is yours. The attendant's eyes shone when he heard this. He could get so much silver just by moving his mouth? Just this silver ingot was equivalent to 1 month of his salary. Customer, if you have anything you want to ask, feel free to ask. The attendant gave a flattering smile. I'm not interested to know anything else, I just want to ask you. 1 year ago, did the Chu family have an 8th grade weapons craftsman that had a conflict with an 8th grade weapons craftsman from outside the family? Even to the extent that they competed in weapons refinement and conducted a life and death bet. Duan Lingtian looked at the attendant as he asked. Customer, I was wondering what you wanted to ask, so it turned out that you wanted to ask about this. I know this. The attendant instantly started laughing when he heard Duan Lingtian's question. The 8th grade weapons craftsman from the Chu family you spoke of is the Chu family's 2nd elder. Now that I speak of it, this Chu family's 2nd elder is a renowned 8th grade weapons craftsman in our Swallow Mountain County's county city, and he's even able to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon with a 19% amplification. 19% amplification. That's a top-grade grade 8 spirit weapon. Supposedly, many years ago he once had a life and death bet with another grade 8 weapons craftsman in weapons refinement. At that time he was only able to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon with an 18% amplification, but he still won against his opponent. Supposedly, that grade 8 weapons craftsman that overestimated his ability 1 year ago was the disciple of that grade 8 weapons craftsman from many years ago. This master and disciple pair fell to the same person, and they can be considered to be unlucky. As he finished speaking, the attendant couldn't help but sigh. When Li Fei heard what the attendant said, her beautiful eyes turned slightly red. Now she could practically confirm that the grade 8 weapons craftsman that had a life and death bet with the Chu family's second elder was her grandfather, Li Da. Do you know what the grade 8 weapons craftsman that had a life and death bet with the Chu family's second elder a year ago was like? Duan Lingtian looked at the attendant as he further confirmed. Customer, it's a coincidence. At that time, I just happened to be resting, and a friend of mine who's a servant of the Chu family brought me in to witness the life and death bet with my own 2 eyes. That grade 8 weapons craftsman was an old man around the age of 70, and above the old man's left eyebrow was a crescent-shaped scar. The attendant spoke slowly, word by word. Unfortunately, even though he was able to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon with an 18% amplification, he still lost. Grandfather? Li Fei's heart trembled, and she raised her head as if wanting to stop the tears that were about to flow out. This silver is yours, give us a few of your signature dishes. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. Now he could completely confirm that the old man was Li Da. All right. The attendant received the silver and left in high spirits. As far as he was concerned, exchanging a few words for a silver ingot was a huge gain. Scoundrel. Li Fei's eyes were filled with tears and she was slightly agitated. Little Fei, we've been on the road for an entire day. When the food is served, eat your fill. After you're full, we'll go to the Zhu family estate and make that Chu family's second elder pay with his life. Doesn't he like to bet his life with weapons? Then I'll accompany him to play. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, his eyes went cold. Okay. Li Fei lightly nodded, seeming to be obedient and cute. Young master, it's only a county city's clan. Just say the word and I'll go annihilate it right now. Xiong Quan's eyes squinted as he spoke in a cold and indifferent voice. Xiong Quan, if you just let some people die, it would be letting them off too easily. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Right at this moment, 2 figures walked into the restaurant. The person in the lead was a young man around the age of 20, and behind him followed an old man. The young man's face was slightly pale, and his footsteps were light. It was obvious that he had overindulged himself. In next to no time, the young man's gaze descended onto the table where Duan Lingtian was at, and onto Li Fei. So beautiful. The young man's breathing became hurried, and he walked over in a few steps. When he looked at Li Fei, his eyes revealed a burning gaze. Young miss, how should I address you? From the beginning until the end, he completely disregarded Duan Lingtian and Xiong Quan at the side. K off. Li Fei was already in a bad mood, and now that she was annoyed by such a detestable fellow, her face sank as she coldly shouted. Oh, you're quite fierce. This young master likes it. The young man didn't get angry and instead became even more interested. Young miss, how about we be friends? I told you to K off, didn't you hear me? Duan Lingtian's face sank, and from the beginning until the end, he didn't even glance at the young man. Chapter 233. Third Young Master Zhu? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed into a line when he heard the young man. You're a member of the Chu family? Exactly. This young master's father is the Chu family's second master, and the Chu family's patriarch is my uncle. How about it, kid? Scared? If you're scared, then hurry up and K off. Zhu Zhao raised his nose and raised his chin, looking down at Duan Lingtian with an arrogant and complacent expression. But he didn't notice that at this moment, the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a faint smile, like the smile of a hunter when he saw his prey. I'll give you one more chance K off. Duan Lingtian's eyes went slightly cold as he stared straight at Zhu Zhao, and his tone contained a trace of pressure. You know this young master's identity, yet you dare ask this young master to K off? Zhu Zhao was stunned, then he revealed a savage expression as he extended his hand to grab Duan Lingtian. Since you won't K off, then let this young master help you. When Zhu Zhao attacked, the strength of 10 ancient mammoths appeared in the air above him. 7th level of the core formation stage. A mantis trying to stop a chariot? Duan Lingtian sneered as he casually swung his arm. He only used the strength of 12 ancient mammoths to easily block Zhu Zhao's attack and slap Zhu Zhao to the ground. Zhu Zhao's overly indulgent body crashed onto the ground as he emitted a wave of miserable shrill cries. Uncle Ji, I want him dead. Zhu Zhao roared with a savage expression as he looked at the old man behind him. The old man's eyes went cold as he looked at Duan Lingtian, then he took a step forward. Young man, there are some people you can't afford to offend. If you do, then you must pay the price. As soon as the old man finished speaking, he extended his hand to descend towards Duan Lingtian, intending to grab Duan Lingtian from his seat. Above the old man, 100 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. He was obviously a 7th-level nascent soul martial artist. Duan Lingtian sneered and ignored the old man. Instead, he looked at the servant in the distance and said, "Hey! Why hasn't the food been served yet? Hurry up, we still have work to do after dinner." The surrounding customers were speechless. This purple-clothed youth actually completely ignored the old man beside the Zhu family's 3rd young master. Just when they thought that Duan Lingtian was going to be in trouble. Xiong Quan, who was standing behind Duan Lingtian, made his move. He moved closer to the old man and casually slammed his palm onto the old man. The old man, who was charging at Duan Lingtian in a menacing manner, was sent flying. He crashed hard into the wall and fainted. Above Xiong Quan's head, ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed past, and no one could clearly see exactly how many there were. So strong. This middle-aged man is at least in existence at the 9th level of the origin core stage. No wonder this violet-clothed young man was so composed. So it turns out that he had such an expert by his side that blasted a 7th-level origin core stage martial artist flying with a single strike. Even an 8th-level origin core stage martial artist is unable to accomplish such a feat. He's definitely in existence at the 9th level of the origin core stage. The surrounding customers couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. "Customer, the food is here." Meanwhile, the attendant brought steaming hot food to Duan Lingtian's table. The attendant was slightly terrified as he never imagined that this generous young man would actually be so terrifying. He even dared to hit the Chu family's 3rd young master. Zhu Zhao half lay on the ground as he struggled to stand up, but the soreness that came from his body caused him to be unable to stand up. When he noticed the burning gazes that descended onto him from the surroundings, shame arose within his heart. When had he ever been so humiliated? For a moment, the gaze he looked at Duan Lingtian with had a trace of coldness mixed within. "Kid, you're dead. Don't you find it tiring to speak ruthlessly while lying down?" Duan Lingtian calmly glanced at Zhu Zhao, then didn't pay any further attention to him. He picked up some food for Li Fei, who was beside him, and said with a light smile, "Little Fei, come eat more." "Okay." Li Fei lightly nodded, then looked at Duan Lingtian's pair of beautiful eyes that were tender like water. In this lifetime, she had no regrets to be able to obtain the protection of this man. "Xiong Quan, sit down and eat as well." Duan Lingtian called out to Xiong Quan. "Yes, young master." Xiong Quan respectfully replied and sat down. When Zhu Zhao saw this scene, he was angered to the point his face flushed red, and when he glanced at the old man that had fainted by the wall, he had the desire to faint as well. "If any of you go to the Chu family and help this young master send a message, then this 1,000 silver is his." Zhu Zhao gritted his teeth, then withdrew the 1,000 silver from his pocket and looked at the crowd of customers in the restaurant. Many customers revealed burning gazes when they heard this, but when they glanced at Duan Lingtian, they dispelled the thought of helping Zhu Zhao. What a joke. There was an existence that was suspected to be at the 9th level of the origin core stage by this violet-clothed young man's side. If they helped Zhu Zhao and the violet-clothed young man became unhappy, then they would surely be unable to bear the consequences. So, although they coveted the 1,000 silver in Zhu Zhao's hand, not a single one of them dared make a move. Although money was good, it wasn't as important as their lives. "All of you. A group of cowards." Zhu Zhao's face was gloomy, and even his breathing became hurried. "If you continue making noise, then you'll end up like him." Duan Lingtian coldly swept Zhu Zhao with his gaze, then extended his hand to point at the old man that had fainted by the wall. Zhu Zhao instantly shut his mouth when he heard this, but his eyes still emitted dense hatred, as he thought about how he would take revenge on Duan Lingtian after returning to the Chu family. Although no one dared to take Zhu Zhao's money. But as some customers finished eating and left, the matter of the Chu family's 3rd young master, Zhu Zhao, kicking an iron plate still quickly spread out. Duan Lingtian's group of 3 had just finished eating and were preparing to leave when Duan Lingtian heard the sound of hurried footsteps coming from outside the restaurant. There were a total of 4 people that arrived menacingly. Duan Lingtian's brows raised as he glanced at Zhu Zhao. Xiong Quan, capture this fellow. Yes, young master. Xiong Quan extended his hand and lifted Zhu Zhao up when he heard this. You. What do you want to do? Zhu Zhao was terrified to the point his face went pale when he was lifted up by Xiong Quan. He'd witnessed the strength of this middle-aged man earlier, and the middle-aged man was suspected to be at the 9th level of the origin core stage. Wanting to kill him was as simple as stepping on an ant. Meanwhile, the sound of footsteps became clearer and clearer as 4 middle-aged men charged into the restaurant. The middle-aged man in the lead wore blue clothes, and his face was covered in a layer of murderous rage. Father, save me. Zhu Zhao seemed as if he'd seen his savior when he saw the blue-clothed middle-aged man, and he hurriedly shouted out. The blue-clothed middle-aged man took a deep breath. His gaze flashed past the old man that fainted at the corner, and after a trace of fear flashed within his eyes, he then looked at Duan Lingtian. Little brother, I'm the second master of the Chu family, Zhu Qi. If my son has offended you in any way, please forgive me. He was clearly aware of the strength of the old man that followed by his son's side. Being able to knock the old man unconscious, the strength of the middle-aged man beside the violet-clothed young man could be imagined. 9th level of the origin core stage. Even if placed in their Chu family, the middle-aged man would still be ranked. Of course, he wasn't afraid of a mere 9th level origin core stage martial artist, because he himself was a 9th level origin core stage martial artist. The other 3 people that followed him over were all existences at the 8th level of the origin core stage as well. If they really fought, he had the confidence to kill them. But the person he was truly afraid of now was the violet-clothed young man. As far as he was concerned, the violet-clothed young man's identity shouldn't be simple since he had a 9th level origin core stage follower by his side. So, although he was furious, he still chose to endure in the end and chose to retreat. Father. What are you doing? I want him dead. I want him dead. Zhu Zhao's face went grim when he heard Zhu Qi, and his expression was savage as he roared. Bastard. Zhu Qi's face sank, and he took a step forward with the intention of giving Zhu Zhao a slap. But Xiong Quan casually raised his hand and moved Zhu Zhao away. Zhu Qi frowned, but his son was in Xiong Quan's hands, so he didn't dare flare up. He looked at the nearby Duan Lingtian. Little brother, after I bring my son back to the Chu family, I'll surely discipline him properly. Now, I hope little brother can let go of my son. Duan Lingtian glanced lazily at Zhu Qi, then asked indifferently. I heard that your Chu family's second elder is a grade 8 weapons craftsman? Yes. Zhu Qi nodded. If little brother wants to find the second elder to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon, then I can help introduce you to him as an apology. How about it? You've concealed it well. Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at Zhu Qi as if he could see through Zhu Qi's heart. Now you should be thinking that since I have such a follower by my side, my background shouldn't be simple. Is that so? Zhu Qi had an embarrassed expression, as he never expected that Duan Lingtian would see through him. Alright, I'll keep your son. As long as you call out your Chu family's second elder, I'll return your son to you. Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Qi with a calm gaze. Zhu Qi's pupils constricted as he discerned that the violet-clothed young man before him had ill intentions. Little brother, may I know why you're looking for our Chu family's second elder? It shouldn't be as simple as asking the second elder to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon, right? Grade 8 spirit weapon? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a sneer, and with a raise of his hand, a strand of raging flames ignited on his hand. Do you think I need him to refine a spirit weapon for me? The flame in Duan Lingtian's hand ignited, and as expected, it caused a stir in the restaurant. Oh my god, it's a grade 8 weapon flame. This violet-clothed young man looks to be not even 20 years old, but he's already a grade 8 weapons craftsman? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. A grade 8 weapons craftsman not even 20 years old? What natural talent is this? The expressions of the customers in the restaurant all went pale, and they couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Some people seemed to have thought of something, and their pupils abruptly constricted. A grade 8 weapon flame can only be condensed by an origin core martial artist. In other words, this young man is an origin core martial artist. An origin core martial artist not even 20 years old? A grade 8 weapons craftsman? The expressions of Zhu Qi and the three middle-aged men he brought went pale. The violet-clothed young man before them was far more terrifying than they'd imagined. "Little brother, may I ask who exactly are you?" Zhu Qi took a deep breath and he could feel his heartbeat speeding up. Not even 20 years old, origin core stage. Grade 8 weapons craftsman. Chapter 234. Instantly, Duan Ling Tian became the absolute center of attention in the restaurant. As far as everyone was concerned. An origin core martial artist that wasn't even 20 years old. Such natural talent seemed to only be inferior to the Imperial City's embroidered uniform guard's commander, Duan Ling Tian, amongst the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. But a grade 8 weapons craftsman that wasn't even 20 years old was an unprecedented existence. At least, in the long history of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, such a monstrous existence had never appeared. Zhu Zhao was dumbstruck as well. He never imagined that a fellow he casually offended would actually be such an abnormal existence. Although he was profligate, he wasn't an idiot. He knew that he'd bitten off more than he could chew this time. Moreover, it was an extremely tough one. Who I am isn't important. Duan Ling Tian looked at Zhu Qi with a calm gaze. Just call out your Chu family's second elder? Right, remember to tell him that I've come to look for him this time only for a life wager. I heard that he's once won 2 life wagers by weapons refinement. I presume he ought to not refuse my challenge. Life wager by weapons refinement? Zhu Qi's pupils constricted and he took a deep breath before looking at Duan Ling Tian. Little brother, although I don't know who you are, since you're able to break through to the origin core stage at such an age and even become a grade 8 weapons craftsman, I presume your background isn't simple. But I still have to advise you. A life wager isn't a joke. Our Chu family's second elder can be said to be second to none amongst the grade 8 weapons craftsmen in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Out of 10 grade 8 spirit weapons that he refines, at least 8 of them are top grade spirit weapons that provide an amplification of 19%. As he spoke up to hear, Zhu Qi looked at Duan Ling Tian, wanting to make Duan Ling Tian back off in the face of difficulties. If it was an ordinary grade 8 weapons craftsman, he wouldn't waste so much breath. But Duan Ling Tian's background was obviously not simple, and he didn't want the Chu family to offend a power that was suspected to be exceedingly powerful for no reason just because of a life wager by weapons refinement. Presently, even the group of customers in the restaurant felt that Duan Ling Tian was indulging in fantasy. This young man is too arrogant. That's right. Even though he became an 8th grade blacksmith at such a young age, but in terms of experience, how could he compare to the second elder of the Chu family? Exactly. The second elder of the Chu family once gambled his life on refining weapons twice and never lost. You're truly young and frivolous. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. None of the guests present were optimistic about Duan Ling Tian. Little brother, you heard it too. If you really bet your life with our Chu family's second elder, you'll definitely lose. So let's just forget about it. Seeing that Duan Ling Tian was indifferent, Zhu Qi further persuaded. Duan Ling Tian calmly swept a glance at Zhu Qi, slowly asking, "Where is the largest trading market in your Swallow Mountain County?" Even though he didn't know why Duan Ling Tian asked this, Zhu Qi still said, "It's in the central district of the county." Duan Ling Tian nodded. After putting down the money for the meal, he held Li Fei's hand and glanced at Xiong Quan. "Xiong Quan, let's go to the trading market in the central district." As he spoke, Duan Ling Tian held Li Fei's hand and walked out the door. Xiong Quan also carried Zhu Zhao and followed. "Little brother, my son?" Zhu Qi's expression slightly changed and he was somewhat anxious. "As long as I see your Chu family's second elder, as long as he agrees to bet his life on refining weapons with me, I'll return your son to you without a single injury." Duan Ling Tian's voice sounded from afar, causing Zhu Qi's expression to darken. "Second master, what do we do now?" A middle-aged man behind Zhu Qi said with slight fear. "Return to the clan." Zhu Qi took a deep breath and left the restaurant. The group of guests in the restaurant also paid their bills and left, heading towards the trading market in the central district of the city. They knew that there would be a show to watch very soon. Zhu Clan Estate Audience Hall. From the Zhu clan's patriarch Zhu Rong, all the higher-ups of the Zhu clan were gathered together. "Patriarch, why did you call us over in such a hurry? Has something happened?" A Zhu clan elder noticed that Zhu Rong's expression was slightly unsightly, and he couldn't help but ask. The other elders all looked at Zhu Rong as well. Zhu Rong's face sank and he glanced at Zhu Qi who stood at the side. Second brother, you speak. For a moment, the gazes of all the Zhu clan elders descended onto Zhu Qi. Zhu Qi took a deep breath and spoke in detail of what he saw and heard in the restaurant, then he added in the end. According to what that young man said, if second elder isn't willing to agree to his request, then he won't let my son go. As soon as Zhu Qi finished speaking, the audience hall went deathly silent. Not even 20 years old? Origin core martial artist? Grade 8 weapons craftsman? Second master, do you know his background? The Zhu clan's grand elder, an old man over 70 years old, had his gaze descend onto Zhu Qi as he asked in a low voice. Grand elder, it's precisely because I don't know his background that I have some misgivings. Zhu Qi laughed bitterly. Second elder, what do you think of this matter? Patriarch Zhu Rong looked at the Zhu clan's second elder Zhu Liang, who sat below the grand elder and asked. Zhu Liang had a calm expression as he said indifferently, he's only a young and ignorant kid that relies on his natural talent to be arrogant. However, since he's able to possess a cultivation at the origin core stage at such an age and even become a grade 8 weapons craftsman, his background ought to not be simple. The Zhu clan higher-ups present deeply agreed with Zhu Liang's words. I think so as well. But he said that if I want to save my son, then there's no other way. Zhu Qi nodded, and as he finished speaking, he had a bitter smile on his face. He's only an ignorant kid. Otherwise, second elder would have agreed to his life wager agreement. A Zhu clan elder that seemed to have a fiery temper spoke directly. Agreeing to his life wager agreement is easy, winning his life wager agreement is easy as well. Zhu Liang's muddy eyes flickered with a trace of a bright light, and he stretched out his hand to lightly tap the table. But we still don't know his background now. If we win against him and he dies, then we'll surely offend the power behind him. The Zhu clan higher-ups went silent, as this was precisely the most troublesome matter. Second elder, how about this? You agree to his life wager agreement, and at most when you win, display your bearing and allow him to not have to carry out the wager agreement. In this way not only can you save Zhu Zhao, you can also avoid offending him. Zhu Rong pondered for a moment before slowly speaking. This method is feasible. I think it's possible as well. Instantly the group of Zhu clan elders agreed. The gazes of everyone descended onto the second elder, Zhu Liang. Zhu Liang's eyes flashed as he nodded. That's good as well. I'll win against him and not allow him to carry out the wager agreement, and I'll be able to obtain a good reputation as well. Swallow Mountain County's county city. Today was undoubtedly a bustling day. Today, a mysterious young man below the age of 20 had arrived at the county city. Supposedly, this young man had just arrived at the county city when he beat up the Chu family's third young master, Zhu Zhao. Not only that, when the Chu family's second master brought people over to look for trouble, the mysterious young man even displayed his cultivation and natural talent as a weapons craftsman, an origin core martial artist below the age of 20, a grade 8 weapons craftsman. After that, this young man even announced that he wanted to carry out a life wager with the Chu family's second elder, Zhu Liang, using weapons craftsmanship as a wager. Moreover, he chose to carry out this life wager at the most bustling trade market at the center of the city. For a time, the entire county city was stirred. The trade market at the center of the city was already filled with people, and now it was even more difficult to move a single step, county governor's estate. A dignified middle-aged man sat within the pergola in the front courtyard as he leisurely savored fragrant tea. Suddenly, County Governor, something big has happened. A servant ran before the dignified middle-aged man in panic. What's so flustered? The dignified middle-aged man was precisely the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan, and his brows raised as he asked in a low voice. County Governor, a young man came to our county city and wants to carry out a life wager with the Chu family's second elder. Under the servant's detailed narration, Pei Yuan knew the sequence of events, and the corners of his mouth slightly curled. An origin core martial artist below the age of 20? Grade 8 weapons craftsman? Pei Yuan abruptly stood up and his eyes lit up. Interesting. Come, follow me to join in the fun. Alchemist Guild. Ever since he became a grade 7 alchemist 3 years ago and left Aurora City, Suemo returned to the county city's Alchemist Guild and even became the vice guild master of the Alchemist Guild. What? An origin core martial artist below the age of 20? Grade 8 weapons craftsman? Suemo was slightly surprised when he heard the rumors that gave rise to much discussion outside. Could it be that there's an existence within the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom that can compare to that little freak? Suemo muttered to himself. He would never forget that violet-clothed youth from all those years ago. That year, it was precisely because of that youth that he was able to smoothly become a grade 7 alchemist and leave the godforsaken Aurora City to return to the bustling county city. Later on, even though he was in the county city, he heard many rumors about that youth from all those years ago. Paladin Academy's #1 genius. Duan clan's direct descendant disciple. Embroidered uniform guards commander. Now, that little fellow from all those years ago had already been publicly acknowledged as the peerless genius with the strongest natural talent in the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. I'll go join in the fun as well. I want to see exactly who's so monstrous that he's almost comparable to that little fellow, Duan Lingtian. The corners of Sumo's mouth held a smile as he directly left the Alchemist Guild. The trade market at the center of the city. A luxurious building with a special symbol hanging outside. The symbol of the Violet Tulip Trading Company. At the highest point of the building was a pavilion. Presently, a graceful and luxurious beautiful woman was sitting in the pavilion as she gazed from afar at an empty area of the trade market. A violet-clothed youth and a beautiful woman stood there. Behind the two of them was a middle-aged man who carried a young man with a pale complexion as if he was catching a chick. I never imagined that he would cause such a huge commotion as soon as he arrived. Chapter 235. Duan Lingtian held Li Fei's hand. At this moment he could clearly feel the fluctuation of Li Fei's emotions. Don't worry, I'll surely take revenge for grandfather. Duan Lingtian gave Li Fei a reassuring gaze. I believe you. Li Fei lightly nodded. She trusted this man unconditionally. Her grandfather was dead and in this world, this man was her greatest reliance. In the future she would only live for this man. They're here. Suddenly, as if he'd noticed something, Duan Lingtian's brows raised as he gazed into the distance. The dense crowd seemed to have discussed it beforehand and opened up a path. It's the Chu family's second elder. The Chu family's second master has come as well. There's also the Chu family's patriarch, grand elder and third elder. My God, practically all the higher-ups of the Chu family have come out. The crowd surged and was extremely clamorous. On the path that the crowd opened up, a group of people walked over in a formidable array. Amongst these people, Duan Lingtian only recognized Zhu Qi, the Chu family's second master. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian and the Chu family's group stood in confrontation at an empty area. When facing a group of Origin Core stage and Nascent Soul stage existences, Duan Lingtian wasn't afraid in the slightest, and his gaze was calm as if he was looking at a group of ordinary people. While Duan Lingtian was sizing up the Chu family's group, the Chu family's members were sizing up Duan Lingtian as well. Their first thought was astonishment. Such a young man that was absolutely not more than 20 years old had actually obtained such shocking accomplishments, and it was truly shocking. The Chu family's second master, Zhu Qi, took a step forward and looked at Duan Lingtian as he said in a low voice, "Little brother, my Chu family's second elder has arrived. Now, can you let my son go?" Which one is the Chu family's second elder? Duan Lingtian's gaze swept over the group of people behind Zhu Qi. I am the second elder of the Chu family, Zhu Liang. An old man behind Zhu Qi took a step forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Zhu Qi. The gaze he used to look at Duan Lingtian contained a trace of disdain. Little fellow, where it's possible to make mistakes, one should spare them. Let people off whenever possible? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh when he heard Zhu Liang's words. Right when Zhu Liang frowned, Duan Lingtian's laughter stopped abruptly, and his cold gaze descended onto Zhu Liang. Zhu clan's second elder, I won't waste my breath with you. Now let's make a life wager agreement, and the victor will be decided in a single round. Whoever refines a grade 8 spirit weapon of lower quality will die. Do you dare? Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Liang, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Zhu Liang's voice was cold as ice. Why wouldn't I dare? Now, I'll agree to your life wager agreement. If he didn't dare, he wouldn't have appeared here now. Duan Lingtian nodded. Good, straightforward enough. Xiongquan let him go. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Xiongquan threw Zhu Zhao, who was in his hand, directly towards Zhu Qi as if he was throwing trash. Zhu Qi glared angrily at Xiongquan as he stretched out his hand to catch his son. Father. Zhu Zhao had an ashamed expression. Zhu Qi grunted coldly. Stand at the back, I'll deal with you when we get back. At this moment, the surrounding crowd quieted down, and everyone stared fixedly at the violet-clothed young man and the green-clothed old man. They held their breaths. They knew that the most exciting moment was about to arrive. Zhu Liang looked at Duan Lingtian as he spoke with a calm tone mixed with a sense of superiority. You're a junior, so it's up to you to make requests. What weapon do you want to refine? Zhu Liang's current tone was like a senior lecturing a junior. The crowd surged. As expected of the Chu family's second elder, the publicly acknowledged #1 Grade 8 weapons craftsman in our Swallow Mountain County. His bearing is extraordinary. Of course, although this young man's talent in weapons refinement can be said to be monstrous, in terms of experience he surely can't compare to the Chu family's second elder. He's simply courting death by making a life wager with the Chu family's second elder. A newborn calf isn't afraid of a tiger. Today this weapons refinement genius is probably going to die here. No one in the surrounding crowd was optimistic about Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian naturally heard the discussions of the crowd. A wisp of worry appeared on Li Fei's face, and the hand that grabbed Duan Lingtian tightened a bit. Don't worry. Duan Lingtian lightly pinched Li Fei's palm, and after letting go of her hand he took a step forward and looked at Zhu Liang. I don't mind, then I'll refine a sword. Sword? A wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of Zhu Liang's mouth. In his lifetime the thing he refined the most was swords. If it was refining a spirit sword, then he had at least a 90% certainty that he would be able to refine a grade 8 spirit sword with a 19% amplification. Then let's begin. Zhu Liang's eyes focused as he raised his hand and withdrew a pile of materials from his spatial ring before starting to refine the grade 8 spirit sword. Zhu Liang's technique was extremely complicated, yet extremely skilled, causing the surrounding crowd to gasp in amazement. The Chu family's second elder's technique is too swift. This is a true weapons craftsman. In next to no time the surrounding crowd looked at Duan Lingtian, but they quickly noticed that Duan Lingtian stood on the spot and didn't have the slightest intention of starting weapon refinement. Could it be that he's giving up just like this? Isn't this courting death? Many people were speechless. Time flew by and 2 hours quickly passed. The pile of materials on the weapon flame in Zhu Liang's hand had now completely fused together to form a sword base. According to this speed, he would surely be able to complete the refinement of the grade 8 spirit sword within an hour. Now Duan Lingtian still didn't make any movements. In a nearby restaurant, in 2 rooms that were adjacent to the place of the life wager, 2 pairs of eyes descended onto Duan Lingtian. Could it be that this young man has given up? In one of the rooms, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan, frowned and had an astonished expression. In the other room, the corners of Sumo's mouth curled into a smile when he saw this scene. This little fellow looks to be extremely confident. I really never imagined that besides being an alchemist, he's also a weapons craftsman. When Sumo had just arrived at this room, he'd noticed that the young man that planned to carry out the life wager with the Chu family's second elder was actually the youth from before, Duan Lingtian. After he found out about this fact, his heart was filled with shock. But in next to no time he came to an understanding. As far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian was a little freak, and it wasn't strange for any miracles to occur on Duan Lingtian. I wonder how this Chu family's second elder offended this little freak. I want to see how he'll deal with this. The corners of Sumo's mouth curled into a smile, as he had extremely great confidence in Duan Lingtian. Although he knew that the Chu family's second elder, Zhu Liang, was able to refine a spirit weapon that provided a 19% amplification. But when he thought of the medicinal pill that Duan Lingtian had refined that day that had a purity of over 90%, he was filled with confidence in Duan Lingtian. Moreover, he knew that since Duan Lingtian dared to make the life wager with the Chu family's second elder in such a flamboyant manner, then he surely had confidence. Duan Lingtian wasn't a rash person. In the luxurious building directly opposite the restaurant in the pavilion. Why do you think he hasn't started crafting weapons yet? The middle-aged man with an imposing appearance lightly smiled as he asked the beautiful woman by his side, and his voice was filled with gentleness like water. The beautiful woman's clear eyes that were like water condensed strands of complicated flowing lights that converged onto the violet-clothed young man. Perhaps he wouldn't need so much time to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon. Don't forget he's Duan Lingtian. Yeah, he's Duan Lingtian. The middle-aged man lightly nodded, and his tone contained slight emotion mixed within. 3 years ago when you mentioned him to me I was slightly disapproving. It was even to the extent that after he refused your good intentions, I felt that he didn't know what was good for him. Who would have thought? The beautiful woman continued. Who would have thought that in a short 3 years, his name would spread throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom? Now it would seem that not only our Violet Tulip Trading Company, even the Crimson Sky Kingdom can't tolerate him. Then let us witness him creating a miracle once more. The middle-aged man lightly smiled as he nodded, and his gaze descended onto the violet-clothed young man in the distance. The group of people from the Chu family couldn't help but reveal disdain when they saw Duan Tian not moving for a long time. He actually hasn't started crafting a grade 8 spirit weapon. Could it be that he's prepared to admit defeat? An elder from the Chu family sneered. He probably won't. The Chu family's patriarch Zhu Rong shook his head. Since the life wager this time was initiated by him, it's impossible for him to admit defeat. I keep having the feeling that it's slightly inappropriate for us to rashly ask the second elder to agree to the wager this time. As he finished speaking, Zhu Rong frowned. For some unknown reason, as he looked at the violet-clothed young man in the distance who had a carefree and unhurried expression, he suddenly felt slightly uncertain in his heart. Patriarch, could it be that you think he can defeat the second elder? Another Chu family elder shook his head with a face full of disbelief. Don't worry, uncle. The second elder is the publicly acknowledged #1 grade 8 weapons craftsman in our Swallow Mountain County. In the Swallow Mountain County, I've never heard of a grade 8 weapons craftsman capable of crafting a grade 8 spirit weapon with a 19% amplification. Zhu Zhao had recovered now, and the gaze he looked at Duan Tian with was extremely gloomy and cold. This time I want to see how he dies. Zhu Qi glanced at his son and said indifferently, then I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. The clan has already made a decision. Even if this young man loses to the second elder might not take his life. Why? Zhu Zhao was stunned, and he had a face full of unwillingness. Zhu Rong added. Zhao, this young man's background ought to be extraordinary. For the sake of not bringing unnecessary trouble to the clan, we can only do this. Zhu Zhao's face sank. Uncle, what if he doesn't have any background? Chapter 236. The sword embryo in the hands of the Chu family's second elder, Zhu Liang, had already started to condense into the outline of a sword. Another half an hour had passed since he finished refining the sword embryo. Just when the surrounding crowd thought that Duan Tian intended to give up, Duan Tian finally moved. The grade 8 weapon flame burned in Duan Tian's hands, causing the gazes of many people to abruptly light up. Although they'd heard that Duan Tian was a grade 8 weapons craftsman before this, when they really saw Duan Tian condense a grade 8 weapon flame, their hearts still trembled. Condensing a grade 8 weapon flame before the age of 20, simply monstrous. This young man is about to start refining as well. In next to no time, the gazes of the surrounding crowd all moved onto Duan Tian. When they saw the technique Duan Tian displayed when he started refining, the surrounding crowd had dumbfounded expressions. Isn't this too fast? I can't even see his movements clearly. I originally thought that the speed of the Chu family's second elder was already fast, but I never imagined that this young man's speed would be even faster. The proficiency of this young man's technique even surpasses the Chu family's second elder. However, being fast doesn't mean that one will be able to refine a high-quality spirit weapon. As the saying goes, slow work produces fine work. The speed at which Duan Tian refined a grade 8 spirit sword could be said to be as swift as lightning. The profound refining technique was at his fingertips, and his speed far surpassed that of the Chu family's second elder, Zhu Liang. After 20 minutes, all the materials in Duan Tian's hands fused together to form a sword embryo. Oh my god, the steps that the Chu family's second elder took 2 hours to complete, he only took 20 minutes. Abnormal. Too abnormal. Can the spirit weapon he refined at such a fast speed really compare to the spirit weapon refined by the Chu family's second elder? It might be a little difficult. The crowd was dumbfounded when they saw the sword embryo floating above the weapon flame in Duan Tian's hand. Another 10 minutes passed. The sword was complete. Duan Tian and Zhu Liang stopped at almost the same time. A sword appeared in each of their hands. An 8th grade spirit sword. The grade 8 spirit sword in Duan Tian's hand was jade green in color. These equipment refinement materials were bought by Duan Tian for the sake of refining the embroidered spring saber that day, and after he finished refining the embroidered spring saber, there was quite a bit left, and they were put to use now. The grade 8 spirit sword in Zhu Liang's hand was emerald green in color, and when it was held in Zhu Liang's hand, it complemented his green clothes extremely well. Seeing that Duan Lingtian had also finished refining an 8th grade spirit sword, Zhu Liang was somewhat surprised. He originally thought that with Duan Lingtian's age, if he wanted to refine a grade 8 spirit sword, he would need at least 3 to 4 hours. But he never imagined that Duan Lingtian's speed would be able to keep up with him. After Zhu Liang started refining earlier, he'd completely immersed himself in it, and he was completely unaware of what happened in the outside world during the period of time he was refining. In next to no time, the discussions that entered his ears caused his face to go grim. Half an hour? Zhu Liang's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian. Only now did he realize that Duan Lingtian had only spent half an hour to refine a grade 8 spirit sword, whereas he'd spent 3 hours. Duan Lingtian had only started refining half an hour ago. This caused him to suffer a great blow. If he was given half an hour, he wouldn't be able to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon even if he was beaten to death, but an hour wasn't a problem. But the grade 8 spirit weapon refined in an hour was a defective product that was difficult to enter the Hall of Elegance. No wonder you're so arrogant, so it turns out that you know such a miraculous method of weapon refinement? But do you really think that the grade 8 spirit sword you spend half an hour to refine can compare to the grade 8 spirit sword I spent 3 hours to meticulously refine? Zhu Liang looked at Duan Lingtian with a face full of disdain. He was extremely satisfied with the grade 8 spirit sword in his hand, as it was able to amplify his strength by 19%, and it had completely displayed his ability. Wouldn't we know if it's comparable to the grade 8 spirit sword you refined after we try it? Duan Lingtian had a carefree expression, and he didn't lose out in the slightest in terms of imposing manner. Then I'll wait and see. But before that, I still want to ask you. Why did you want to bet your life with me on weapon refinement? Zhu Liang glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian as he probed Duan Lingtian. Before the results were out, he had to investigate Duan Lingtian's identity. If Duan Lingtian's background wasn't simple, then even if he won, he could only pretend to be magnanimous and spare Duan Lingtian's life. If Duan Lingtian didn't have any background, then he would surely make Duan Lingtian die a graveless death. There was a price to pay for provoking him. Do you really want to know? Duan Lingtian noticed Zhu Liang's gaze and naturally guessed his intentions, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Zhu Liang nodded. All right, then I'll tell you. Duan Lingtian's words caused Zhu Liang's eyes to light up. Even the group of Chu family members concentrated their attention on Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Liang and asked indifferently. You ought to remember the old man that challenged you on weapon refinement a year ago, right? He is my grandfather. Zhu Liang was stunned, then he started laughing. The old man from a year ago? So that old man who overestimated himself and challenged me on weapon refinement was your grandfather. Zhu Liang's eyes flashed as he made up his mind. If that was the case, then the young man before him shouldn't have any background, and was only born with a strong innate talent. He knew a little about the background of the old man from a year ago. He was only an elder of a small family in a small city. He was nothing to the Chu family. The eyes of the group of Chu family members also brightened. Zhao, the second elder can avenge you now, said the second elder. The patriarch of the Chu family, Zhu Rong, looked at Zhu Zhao with a smile on his face. Zhu Zhao was pleasantly surprised. I knew it, he definitely didn't have any background. As expected, the old man who came to throw away his life a year ago was his grandfather. This time, I'll let the two of them accompany each other on the road to the netherworld. Soon Zhu Zhao's gaze fell on Li Fei, who was in the distance. As far as he was concerned, once this violet-clothed young man died, wouldn't it be easy for him to obtain this beauty that was like a celestial? For a moment, Zhu Zhao's gaze revealed a trace of lust. Duan Lingtian noticed Zhu Zhao's gaze at the first possible moment, and his face slightly sank as killing intent filled his eyes. This Zhu Zhao actually dared to use such a gaze to blaspheme his little Fei. As far as he was concerned, Zhu Zhao was already a dead man. Kid, looks like you're definitely going to die today. Zhu Liang looked at Duan Lingtian as if he'd already won, and in his heart, he really did think he'd won. Although Duan Lingtian's weapon refinement technique was miraculous, as far as he was concerned, how could a spirit weapon refined in half an hour compare to a spirit weapon he refined in 3 hours? Moreover, as far as he was concerned, this violet-clothed young man was only the grandson of his defeated opponent, and wasn't worth much. Second Elder Zhu, sometimes don't speak so early. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as if he didn't take Zhu Liang's words to heart in the slightest. What? Could it be that you think the Grade 8 Spirit Sword you spent half an hour to refine can compare to the Grade 8 Spirit Sword I refined? Let me tell you, this Grade 8 Spirit Sword I refined is able to provide an amplification of 19%. Zhu Liang sneered as he glanced at Duan Lingtian with contempt, and he didn't intentionally suppress his voice, and even condensed his origin energy to spread it out into the distance. Instantly, the surrounding crowd of spectators were stirred. 19%? Looks like the Chu family's second elder has completely displayed his ability this time. This young man's luck is really bad, a Grade 8 spirit weapon that provides an amplification of 19%. In Swallow Mountain County, besides the Chu family's second elder, I've never heard of another Grade 8 weapons craftsman being able to refine such a spirit weapon. What a pity, such a monstrous young man is bound to lose his life here today. When the discussions of the crowd entered into Zhu Liang's ears, it caused him to feel incomparably pleased. The group of people from the Chu family revealed smiles on their faces as well. As far as they were concerned, this violet-clothed young man who didn't know his limits was bound to lose. He was dead. Within the restaurant's room. A Grade 8 spirit sword refined in half an hour? The Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan, shook his head as he didn't look favorably upon this violet-clothed young man. In the room next door, Sumo's brows slightly frowned. Why didn't this little fellow refine seriously? Is a Grade 8 spirit sword refined in half an hour even presentable? Even if Sumo had confidence in Duan Lingtian, he couldn't help but be slightly shaken now. After all, to be able to forge an 8th grade spiritual weapon in half an hour was truly an inconceivable matter. The quality of a spirit weapon refined in such a short period of time might not be good. However, when he noticed that Duan Lingtian's expression was calm from the beginning until the end, he calmed down in his heart. Perhaps this kid will give me another pleasant surprise. Otherwise, I can only wake up that Chu family and let them know of this kid's identity. Sumo believed. So long as Duan Lingtian's identity was exposed, even if the Chu family was given 100 guts, they wouldn't dare touch Duan Lingtian. At the very least, they wouldn't dare touch Duan Lingtian in broad daylight. In the pavilion of the luxurious building. The outcome will be revealed very soon. The beautiful woman lightly smiled, seeming to be filled with confidence towards the violet-clothed young man in the distance. Is it really possible for a Grade 8 spirit sword refined in half an hour to surpass the Grade 8 spirit sword refined by Zhu Liang that provides an amplification of 19%? The nearby middle-aged man was slightly hesitant. If you want to know if it's possible, you'll know very soon. The beautiful woman continued. You're right. The middle-aged man lightly nodded. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Zhu Liang. Second Elder Zhu, how should we test the Grade 8 spirit swords we've refined? Zhu Liang grunted coldly. Let's test it ourselves. Of course, if we doubt each other's judgment, we can find someone else to test it. Now that there are so many people in the surroundings, are you still afraid that no one will test it? Alright then, let's test it ourselves first. Duan Lingtian nodded and didn't have any objections before casually tossing the Grade 8 spirit sword in his hand towards Zhu Liang. Chapter 237. When they saw Duan Lingtian and Zhu Liang exchange the Grade 8 spirit swords they each refined, although there were many spectators, all of them had concentrated their attention and were unable to take their eyes off them. They knew. The outcome of today's life wager was about to be revealed. Duan Lingtian's origin energy fused into the Grade 8 spirit sword in his hand, and instantly, the strength of numerous ancient mammoths flashed above him. Not bad, an amplification of 19%. Duan Lingtian nodded to Zhu Liang with a calm gaze. He had to admit in his heart that this Zhu Liang did indeed have some ability. However, he could only blame Zhu Liang for being unlucky. After all, his weapon refinement ability and experience all came from the memories of the Samsara Emperor Wu, and even in the entire Cloud Continent he was a top existence. This Zhu Liang, compared to him, was more than 100,000 li apart. However, he still held back when refining the weapon this time. As far as he was concerned, it was enough to steadily defeat Zhu Liang. There was no need to show off too much. Zhu Liang, who was just thinking of testing the Grade 8 spirit sword Duan Lingtian refined, couldn't help but jerk in his heart when he saw Duan Lingtian's composed expression. Could it be that this kid really has the confidence to defeat me? No, impossible. Zhu Liang ceaselessly consoled himself in his heart, then took a deep breath and started testing the sword. Zhu Liang was a first-level nascent soul stage martial artist, and if he didn't use a spirit weapon he was able to exert the strength of 200 ancient mammoths. Now he utilized the Great Eight Spirit Sword Duan Ling Tian refined. Whoosh. For a time, the strength of 240 ancient mammoths appeared above him. 20%? No. Impossible. Impossible. Zhu Liang's face finally went pale, and his eyes stared wide open as he ceaselessly shook his head, unwilling to believe that all this was real. How could this be possible? The Grade 8 spirit weapon he refined that provided an amplification of 19% could be considered to be a top-grade spirit weapon amongst Grade 8 spirit weapons. Whereas this Grade 8 spirit weapon that provided an amplification of 20% could already be considered to be a top-grade spirit weapon amongst top-grade spirit weapons. A spirit weapon like this was refined by a young man that wasn't even 20 years old? He didn't dare believe it, nor was he willing to believe that this was true. At this moment, the smiles on the faces of the Chu family group completely froze. How could this be possible? That young man is able to refine a Grade 8 spirit sword that provides an amplification of 20%? The pupils of the Chu family's grand elder constricted and his face went pale. Presently the Chu Zhan, Zhu Qi and the other Chu family elders were completely dumbstruck, and didn't dare believe that all this was true. How could this be possible? How could this be possible? Zhu Chu to Linghan Lingtian's, Chu Lingtian's, a Grade 8 spirit sword that can amplify strength by 20%? The eyes of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan, squinted and he had a face full of disbelief. A Grade 8 spirit sword refined within half an hour was able to provide an amplification of 20%? Who the heck was this violet-clothed young man? It was simply unbelievable. In the adjacent room, Su Mo instead laughed heartily. This kid really didn't disappoint me. Refining a Grade 8 spirit sword that provides an amplification of 20% in half an hour, such natural talent in weapons refinement is simply heaven-defying. It wasn't only Pei Yuan and Su Mo. Even the husband and wife in the pavilion, although they were filled with confidence towards Duan Ling Tian since the beginning, when they saw this scene with their own two eyes, they couldn't help but be slightly moved. Second Elder Zhu, what do you think now? Duan Ling Tian looked at Zhu Liang, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Li Fei stood at the back with an excited expression. Her man had taken revenge for her grandfather. A trace of warmth rose in her heart. However, Zhu Liang seemed as if he didn't hear what Duan Ling Tian said, and he ceaselessly shook his head. Impossible. Impossible? Obviously he still hadn't recovered from this enormous blow. The surrounding crowd of spectators had recovered from their shock now, and without exception, all of them had faces full of astonishment. F***K. A Grade 8 spirit sword that provides an amplification of 20%? This violet-clothed young man is simply a freak. Not just a freak, he's simply a freak amongst freaks, a super freak. Looks like the title of #1 Grade 8 weapons craftsman in the Swallow Mountain County will belong to him in the future. It's truly unbelievable, he's really not even 20? Of course. Look at his appearance, he's obviously a young man that has just shed his childishness. Everyone was shocked. The scene before them was completely different from the scene they'd expected. This violet-clothed young man had actually won against the Chu family's second elder in a life bet of weapons refinement. Moreover, he'd used half an hour to refine a Grade 8 spirit sword to win against the Chu family's second elder. It was simply heaven-defying. Meanwhile, the Chu family's second elder, Zhu Liang, slowly recovered from his shock. However, his face was mixed with a trace of terror. No, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Zhu Liang's heart trembled. Then he took the Grade 8 spirit sword that Duan Ling Tian refined, turned around and flashed out to gather with the Chu family. This scene was slightly unexpected to Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian's face sank, and his eyes emitted a cold killing intent. Second Elder Zhu, are you trying to go back on your word? For a moment the surrounding crowd emitted waves of boos. The dignified second elder of the Chu family was actually trying to go back on his word? Willing to bet but unwilling to admit defeat? Zhu Liang's expression was extremely unsightly, but he felt guilty and didn't dare to reply. Meanwhile, the Chu family's patriarch Zhu Rong stood out and looked at Duan Ling Tian. Young man, I have to say that your skill in weapons refinement is admirable. But the second elder is extremely important to our Chu family, and our Chu family can't do without him no matter what. So, for this life bet, my Chu family is willing to use something else to exchange for the second elder's life. Something else? Duan Ling Tian's eyes went cold as he sneered. I'm sorry, but I really don't lack anything else. The reason I came to have a life bet with your Chu family's second elder was precisely to take his life. Then forgive me for being unable to comply. Zhu Rong's face sank. Zhu Liang. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Zhu Liang, and his gaze was cold and indifferent. Are you sure you want to go back on your word? Are you sure you want to drag the entire Chu family down with you for the sake of your own life? I'll give you a chance, take your own life right now or else I'll annihilate your Chu family. Duan Lingtian's voice was filled with endless coldness. Want to go back on your word in front of him? Was that possible? Shameless boasting. The Chu family's second master, Zhu Qi, sneered as he looked at Duan Lingtian with a face full of disdain. Kid, my big brother gave you something else as compensation because he thinks highly of you. However, since you're so arrogant, then there's nothing left. If you still want to keep your life, then scram now. Is that so? Duan Lingtian's eyes emitted a cold light, and the rage in his heart burned to the limit. He was rarely so angry. But today he was completely enraged. Pei Yuan, who was in the restaurant's private room, frowned. He was slightly displeased with the Chu family's second elder going back on his word. However, he didn't know this violet-clothed young man, so he didn't plan on standing up for him. Su Imo, who was in the room next door, had a gloomy expression. He directly jumped out of the window and walked towards Duan Lingtian's location. He wanted to let the Chu family know of Duan Lingtian's identity. As far as he was concerned, this Chu family member actually dared to go back on his word in front of the dignified embroidered uniform guard's commander, Duan Lingtian. He was simply courting death. In the pavilion. Look, the Chu family is planning to use their power to bully others. The beautiful woman's gaze had an extra trace of coldness. Let's go over. The middle-aged man brought the beautiful woman down from the pavilion and walked towards Duan Lingtian's location. The surrounding crowd of onlookers had never stopped booing. The Chu family is too shameless. Yeah, when this young man's grandfather gambled with Zhu Liang won and directly took his life. Now that it's his turn, he's going back on his word. Too shameless. I've decided that in the future, I won't go to the Chu family's businesses to spend money, even if it's just a copper coin. Me too, even if I have to throw my money into the gutter, I won't let the Chu family earn it. A man is a man of his word. The Chu family has really gone too far this time. The Chu family's current actions had aroused public indignation. The Chu family members, from the patriarch to Zhu Rong, all had extremely unsightly expressions. Kid, I'll give you 5 breaths of time to disappear from our sight. Otherwise, not only you, even the other 2 people beside you will die without a doubt. Zhu Rong's eyes were cold as he looked towards Duan Lingtian and threatened. Hearing Zhu Rong's words, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh loudly, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Good. What a Chu family. Duan Lingtian's eyes were as cold as ice, and his voice was filled with a gloomy coldness as if it came from the depths of hell. Xiongquan. Other than Zhu Liang, don't leave a single person alive. Duan Lingtian's body emitted a towering killing intent as he spoke in a cold voice. At this moment, it was as though Duan Lingtian had transformed into a devil god, a bloodthirsty devil god, while everyone was still in a daze. Yes, young master. Xiongquan made his move. Only a few people on the scene were able to catch Xiongquan's movements. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The continuous sound of swords whistling in the air seemed to be heard at the same time, causing the surrounding crowd to tremble in fear. When everyone finally regained their senses, they discovered, apart from the second elder, Zhu Liang, who was trembling on the spot with a ghastly pale face, everyone from the Chu family was lying on the ground. Blood flowed like a river. At this moment, a figure that was as fast as a ghost returned to Duan Lingtian's side. Drops of blood dripped from the 3-foot-long sword in his hand. It looked as though they had transformed into red roses that were dazzling and resplendent. Silence. At this moment, the scene was deathly silent. The group of people from the Chu family that were lying on the ground included a few nascent soul stage existences. Besides Zhu Zhao, the remaining people were all existences at the 9th level of the origin core stage. However, in the blink of an eye they were all gone. Chapter 238. Sumo's body stiffened as he stared blankly at the scene before him, and he was completely dumbstruck. Amongst the group of people from the Chu family that had fallen, the Grand Elder of the Chu family was in existence at the 3rd level of the nascent soul stage. However, just like the others, he didn't even have the chance to react before falling down. dead to the point he couldn't be any more dead. His gaze flickered with a complicated sheen as he looked at the violet-clothed young man who stood there with a carefree expression, and his heart trembled. Looks like I was worried for nothing. There's actually such a terrifying expert by this little fellow's side. The couple that rushed over at practically the same time as Su Mo froze on the spot as well. Yin, that person by Duan Lingtian's side. Traces of shock appeared on the graceful and luxurious beautiful woman's beautiful face that had always been carefree. I'm far inferior to him. The middle-aged man by the beautiful woman's side had a complicated gaze as he sighed. The beautiful woman's beautiful eyes squinted when she heard this, and she completely lost her composure. She was extremely clear about her husband's strength. He was in existence at the half-step void stage. She could imagine that a person that even her husband felt inferior to was surely a first-rate existence at the void prying stage without a doubt. Void prying stage. In the restaurant's room, the pupils of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor constricted, and the teacup in his hand transformed into a pile of fragments that scattered down because he used too much strength. However, he seemed to not notice it in the slightest. Who the heck is this violet-clothed young man? Pei Yuan's heart trembled and he left his seat. No matter who the young man was, the appearance of a void-prying stage expert was already worthy of him, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, personally making an appearance. Duan Lingtian walked step by step towards the Chu family's second elder Zhu Liang. Every step he took seemed to transform into a sledgehammer that fiercely smashed onto Zhu Liang's chest, causing Zhu Liang's face to flush slightly. Deep despair arose within Zhu Liang's heart as he looked at the violet-clothed young man before him. Never had he imagined that the follower by the side of this violet-clothed young man would actually be so terrifying. In the blink of an eye, before he could even react, the young man had already killed the entire group of people from the Chu family. Amongst them was no lack of existences that were even stronger than him. Why did you kill them? Zhu Liang's voice trembled slightly as he glared at Duan Lingtian. Why kill them? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Zhu Liang calmly. Didn't I give you a chance just now? So, even if they died, they were dragged down by you. Zhu Liang shuddered. It was only then that he remembered the purple-robed young man's words. Are you sure you want to drag down the entire Chu family for your own life? I'll give you a chance to kill yourself right now. Otherwise, I'll annihilate your Chu family. It turned out that the purple-clothed young man's words weren't deliberately mystifying, and it wasn't baseless. He really had the ability to do so. In an instant, Zhu Liang's heart was filled with regret. He was the one who killed the Chu family. It didn't matter if he died sooner or later. However, even though he could live for a little longer, he had caused the Chu family to pay a huge price. Who are you? Zhu Liang looked at Duan Lingtian with an unwilling expression on his face. As soon as Zhu Liang finished speaking, the surrounding crowd's attention fell on Duan Lingtian. They were curious as well. Who was this young man who had such a powerful follower by his side? Second Elder Zhu, you don't even know who he is, yet you dare to act so shamelessly in front of him? Right at this moment, an abrupt voice sounded out, and an aged old man shuttled through the crowd as if he'd transformed into a slippery loach that no one was able to stop. In the blink of an eye, the old man arrived next to Duan Lingtian. Old man. When he heard the voice earlier, Duan Lingtian felt it to be slightly familiar. Now that he saw the old man appear, Duan Lingtian's gaze abruptly lit up and a brilliant smile hung on his face. He never imagined that he would be able to see an old friend in the county city this time. The old man before him was none other than the Alchemist Guild's guild master, Su Mo, who he'd met in Aurora City that day. At that time, Su Mo had become a grade 7 alchemist under his guidance and left Aurora City. Su Mo's appearance caused quite a stir. I know him, he's our county city's Alchemist Guild's Vice Guild Master Su. It really is Vice Guild Master Su. This young man seems to be very familiar with Vice Guild Master Su, directly calling him old man. Looks like this young man's identity is really not simple. The surrounding crowd had surprised expressions when they saw the scene before them. Su Mo, a grade 7 alchemist, and the Vice Guild Master of the county city's Alchemist Guild. His status in the county city was extremely special, and even their Swallow Mountain County's county governor had to be respectful. Zhu Liang's face went grim. Looks like his guess wasn't wrong, this violet-clothed young man was indeed not simple. Su Mo, your movements are really quick. Right at this moment, a couple that was like a celestial couple walked over in large strides, and everywhere they passed, the crowd would move aside. It's the Violet Tulip Trading Company's Swallow Mountain County Branch's Guild Master, Lin Yu. and her husband, the Violet Tulip Trading Company's Swallow Mountain County's Guard Commander, Jiyan. This Guard Commander is a void stage powerhouse that's on the same level as the county governor. The crowd clamored as they recognized the beautiful woman and middle-aged man that walked over shoulder to shoulder. President Lin, Commander Ji. Suemo lightly smiled to the two of them. When Zhu Liang saw Lin Yu and Ji Yan appear, he felt the sky darken. Oh my god, these two know this violet-clothed young man as well? Can someone tell me who the heck this violet-clothed young man is? Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the beautiful woman and was slightly stunned. Then, his gaze descended onto the middle-aged man beside the beautiful woman, and he discerned with a single glance that this was a half-step void stage powerhouse. When he thought of how Suemo addressed the two of them, Duan Lingtian guessed the identities of the two of them. President Lin, I was just about to come and thank you after I finished my business. I never expected that you and Ji Tong would be a step ahead of me. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled to Lin Yu and Ji Yan, and he was refined and courteous. Commander Duan, you're too courteous. Being able to work for you is Lin Yu's honor, and it's also the Violet Tulip Trading Company's honor. Lin Yu lightly smiled, and her slender waist that was like a water snake swayed, revealing boundless temptation that caused others to have the impulse to forcefully press her down on the ground and ravage her. Although this Lin Yu wasn't young, she still retained her charm and was a tempting stunner. Exactly, if Commander Duan has any orders, my Violet Tulip Trading Company will surely do our best. Ji Yan also said. This middle-aged man with a dignified expression lowered his head in front of Duan Lingtian. Not to mention Duan Lingtian's identity, even the strong person by Duan Lingtian's side was enough to make him bow down. President Lin and Commander Ji are too courteous. Lin Chi is my friend and you are his elders, so naturally you are my elders as well. In the future the two of you don't have to call me Commander Duan anymore, just call me by my name. Duan Lingtian smiled. This time he was truly grateful to this pair of husband and wife. If it weren't for them, he wouldn't have been able to track down the murderer who killed little Fei Er's grandfather so quickly. Duan Lingtian and Lin Yu were chatting cheerfully and wittily, but the content of their conversation caused a commotion in the crowd of onlookers. Commander Duan? President Lin Yu and Commander Ji Yan are the highest-ranking people in charge of the Violet Tulip Trading Company's Swallow Mountain County branch. When they faced this young man, they seemed to reveal humility from the bottom of their hearts. Even if they saw the county governor, they wouldn't be like this, right? Commander Duan? Surname Duan? And so young. Could it be? Could it be that he's the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian? The crowd discussed, and before long, someone guessed Duan Lingtian's identity. Instantly, another wave of commotion arose. What? He's Duan Lingtian? I should have thought of it long ago. In our Crimson Sky Kingdom, besides the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian, who else is able to break through to the origin core stage before the age of 20? But I really never imagined that Commander Duan is actually a grade 8 weapons craftsman. Accurately speaking, he's a grade 8 weapons craftsman that can refine a grade 8 spirit weapon that provides a 20% amplification of strength. This time, the Chu family has really bitten off more than they can chew. Look at the expression of the Chu family's second elder, it's as unsightly as it can be. Now, boundless regret has probably arisen within his heart. The crowd clamored as numerous gazes descended onto Zhu Liang, and their gazes contained a sense of schadenfreude mixed within. Zhu Liang's shameless actions from before had touched their bottom line. So, no matter how tragic Zhu Liang's end would be, they wouldn't have the slightest bit of pity. All of this was Zhu Liang's own fault. Duan Lingtian. He's Duan Lingtian. Zhu Liang was slightly dazed as he gazed at the violet-clothed young man that was happily chatting with Suemo, Lin Yu, and Ji Yan, and boundless regret arose within his heart. If he knew earlier that this violet-clothed young man was the commander of the embroidered uniform guard that was renowned throughout the Crimson Sky Kingdom, even if he was given 100 guts, he still wouldn't dare act shamelessly. As he glanced at the pile of corpses by his feet, he only felt a heart full of regret, and it was almost about to explode him into pieces. No. So many people in the clan died for me, I must live. I must live. The desire to live arose within Zhu Liang's heart, and he glanced vigilantly at Duan Lingtian's direction. His feet shook as his origin energy skyrocketed, and he directly charged into the crowd, desiring to flee. Want to flee? Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold. Coldness suffused Xiongquan's eyes, and his figure moved, intending to grab Zhu Liang back. In front of him, it was impossible for Zhu Liang to escape. But Xiong Quan hadn't even charged into the crowd when he noticed a rock-like figure whistling over, carrying Zhu Liang in his hand. The person that appeared now was a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes with an imposing appearance. County Governor. Suemo was slightly surprised when he saw the person that had arrived. Swallow Mountain County's County Governor? Chapter 239. Swallow Mountain County's County Governor? Pei San's father? Duan Lingtian sized up the middle-aged man in luxurious clothes before him with interest. Commander Duan. Pei Yuan greeted Duan Lingtian warmly, then he greeted Suemo, Linyu and Ji Yen. In the next moment, his hand descended and directly crippled Zhu Liang's dantian. Pei Yuan. Instantly Zhu Liang cried out sorrowfully, and his eyes were crimson red as he glared angrily at Pei Yuan. Pei Yuan ignored Zhu Liang and casually threw Zhu Liang at Duan Lingtian's feet. Commander Duan, since it's your first time in my Swallow Mountain County's county city, consider this untrustworthy villain my gift to you. Although, even if I didn't make a move, he wouldn't have been able to escape. As he finished speaking, Pei Yuan's gaze fell onto Xiong Quan, who had returned to Duan Lingtian's side, and he was slightly fearful. Then I'll thank County Governor Pei. Duan Lingtian nodded and smiled at Pei Yuan, then he raised his leg and fiercely stomped on Zhu Liang's body. Bang. Instantly, Zhu Liang's body came into 360-degree contact with the ground, without any blind spots. Little Fei. Duan Lingtian called out to Li Fei, then he seized the grade 8 spirit sword from Zhu Liang's hand and passed it to Li Fei, who had stepped forward. No. Don't. After Zhu Liang saw the killing intent emitted from Li Fei's beautiful eyes, a chill arose in his heart, and he hurriedly cried out in fear. Whoosh. Li Fei's gaze was cold as she raised her hand and released her origin energy. Her sword descended and pierced through Zhu Liang's body, nailing Zhu Liang's body to the ground. Blood splattered everywhere, resplendent and dazzling. The hatred on Li Fei's face finally vanished like smoke into thin air when she saw Zhu Liang take his last breath. But when she thought of her grandfather, she felt a wave of heartache, and she threw herself into Duan Lingtian's embrace as she sobbed silently. All right, now that you've avenged Grandpa will be able to rest in peace. Duan Lingtian gently patted Li Fei's back and comforted her softly. At this time, the people present suddenly realized that Duan Lingtian was not avenging his own grandfather, but the grandfather of his confidant. What a beautiful woman. This is the first time in my life that I've seen such a stunning beauty. I'm afraid only a talent like Commander Duan is worthy of her. The onlookers cheered again. A trace of admiration rose in their hearts towards Duan Lingtian's actions of getting angry over a woman. A good man should be like a commander in brocade clothes, destroying the Zhu clan in anger for a woman. Commander Duan, you've come from afar. As the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, I have to perform the duties of a host no matter what. Duan Lingdan, please do me the honor of coming to my county governor's estate for a gathering. Pei Yuan was an intelligent person, and he only invited Duan Lingtian after he comforted Li Fei. County Governor Pei, we're intending to invite Commander Duan for a gathering as well. Ji Yin lightly smiled. Although Pei Yuan was the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, he didn't mind in the slightest. Pei Yuan was only a half-step void stage martial artist like him. When he saw Pei Yuan and Ji Yin fighting for Duan Lingtian, Suemo laughed heartily. No matter where this kid goes, this old fellow will follow along to join in the fun and freeload a meal. You two wouldn't mind, right? Vice Guild Master Su, you're joking. It's an honor. Pei Yuan and Ji Yin practically spoke in unison. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian had already put away the spatial rings of all the Chu family members and the 2 grade 8 spirit swords. He noticed that Pei Yuan and Ji Yin were both looking at him, waiting for him to make a decision. County Governor Pei, Duan Lingtian will remember your favor today. However, Commander Ji is my senior, and as a junior, I don't dare disobey the orders of a senior. So, I hope County Governor Pei can forgive me. Duan Lingtian tactfully refused Pei Yuan. He couldn't help but think evilly in his heart. If Pei Yuan knew that the culprit that crippled his son's arm was right before him, I wonder what expression he would have. Pei Yuan was the Swallow Mountain County's county governor after all. He wasn't unhappy in the slightest when facing Duan Lingtian's refusal, and the smile on his face still remained. Then Pei Yuan won't force you. But the door to my county governor's estate will always be open to Commander Duan. No matter when Commander Duan comes, the county governor's estate will always treat Commander Duan as an honored guest. Thank you, County Governor Pei. Duan Lingtian nodded. This Pei Yuan was more than just a little bit stronger than Pei San. As expected of a county governor. Then Pei Yuan will take his leave first. Pei Yuan bid his farewells to Duan Lingtian before leaving. He came like the wind and left like the wind, incomparably confident and at ease. Along with the departure of Duan Lingtian's group, the group of people gathered at the city's trade market finally dispersed as well. What happened today was bound to be hung on the mouths of the people of the county city for a very long time in the future. Besides this, the Chu family had completely declined. Yu clan estate. Chu family. The Yu clan's patriarch Yu Dian had a complicated gaze. The foundation of a great clan that wasn't inferior to his Yu clan was completely destroyed by a young man that wasn't even 20 years old. That Duan Lingtian. Perhaps I shouldn't have allowed second brother and grand elder to seek revenge on him. Now, second brother and grand elder are dead, and even the supreme elder that went to the imperial city later on has completely vanished without a trace. They surely have met with misfortune. Yu Dian's face was covered in bitterness. Presently, the people of the county city only knew that Duan Lingtian had destroyed the Chu family. But only he knew that Duan Lingtian hadn't only destroyed the Chu family, he'd also destroyed his Yu clan. Fortunately, the news of the disappearance of the few nascent soul-stage martial artists of the Yu clan had been sealed off by him. Otherwise, the Yu clan would have probably ceased to exist long ago. Even if they were able to struggle at death's door, it would be impossible for them to have the status they had today. Of course, even though he knew that the instigator of all this was Duan Lingtian, Yu Dian didn't dare have any thoughts of taking revenge. What a joke. Not to mention Duan Lingtian's current status, just the network of relationships that Duan Lingtian had, any random power was sufficient to annihilate his Yu clan. Duan Lingtian. He's simply the nemesis of my Yu clan. Yu Dian muttered to himself, and his tone was filled with bitterness. Agarwood Restaurant. As the property of the Violet Tulip Trading Company in the county city, this Agarwood restaurant was countless times more luxurious than the Agarwood restaurant in Duan Lingtian's hometown, Fresh Breeze Town. Presently, in the pavilion on the top floor of Agarwood restaurant, 5 people were sitting in a circle. Only one person was standing, and that was Xiong Quan, who stood behind Duan Lingtian. Xiong Quan stood there, unmoving like a mountain. However, at this moment, besides Duan Lingtian and Li Fei, Suemo Linyu, and Ji Yan were all slightly restless. Commander Duan, you should let this lord sit down. Ji Yan glanced at Xiong Quan as he spoke to Duan Lingtian. Unknowingly, a wisp of a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. When a dignified void-prying stage expert stood at the side, he would feel slightly restless no matter what. Linyu and Suemo looked at Duan Lingtian as well. Duan Lingtian noticed the difficult situation of the three and shook his head with a smile. Xiong Quan, sit down. Yes, young master. Xiong Quan replied and sat down respectfully. Only then did Ji Yan and the others heave a sigh of relief. In next to no time the food was served. It was all delicious delicacies and there was also plenty of fine wine. Little Sister Fei is worthy of being one of the 3 great beauties of Aurora City. Truly beautiful. Lin Yu looked at Li Fei and lightly smiled. Li Fei's beautiful face blushed slightly and was slightly embarrassed. Guildmaster Lin, you're very beautiful as well. Here, the 2 women were whispering to each other. On the other side, Duan Lingtian was chatting with Ji Yan and Suemo. Kid, you made the right choice that time. Fortunately, you didn't follow me back to the Alchemist Guild that year. Otherwise, it would simply be burying your talent. During the battle at the northwest border, you commanded our Crimson Sky Kingdom's army to show our might. Even I, this old fellow, have no choice but to admire you. Suemo drank a few cups of wine and was slightly excited. Exactly, that battle could simply be called a classic. Sometimes I even think about how my blood would boil if I could participate in it as well. Ji Yan deeply agreed. As the guard commander of the Violet Tulip Trading Company, he had the heart of an iron-blooded man as well. Duan Lingtian only lightly smiled when he heard this. Ji Yan had a higher opinion of Duan Lingtian when he saw Duan Lingtian's reaction. Commander Duan, to a certain extent, you can already be considered to be standing at the peak of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Do you have any plans for the future? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed and a trace of yearning flashed within his eyes. Truthfully speaking, I returned to Swallow Mountain County this time precisely to bid farewell to someone. After I'm done here, I won't stay in the Imperial City for long before leaving the Crimson Sky Kingdom and heading to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Ji Yan and Su Mo weren't surprised by Duan Lingtian's decision. With Duan Lingtian's strength and natural talent, staying in the Crimson Sky Kingdom would only hinder his development. Duan Lingtian didn't belong to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. The Crimson Sky Kingdom was unable to trap him. It was impossible for a dragon to be trapped in the ocean forever. It would eventually leap out of the ocean and soar into the 9 heavens. Have you prepared to join a sect? Ji Yan asked. As far as he was concerned, since Duan Lingtian wanted to go to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, he surely had to find a sect to join. After all, only within those sects would he be able to obtain a better improvement. A sect was not only a stage for experts to compete for supremacy, it was also the best springboard, and it was the best choice for a genius in the martial Dao like Duan Lingtian. Not yet. Duan Lingtian shook his head. His knowledge of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was limited to the Boundless Sect and the Black Fiend Sect. The Boundless Sect was the sect that Xiongquan used to be in. The Black Fiend Sect was the sect that annihilated the Boundless Sect. When he thought of the Black Fiend Sect, a trace of coldness flashed within the depths of Duan Lingtian's eyes. All those years ago, the scene in the misty forest was something he couldn't forget for his entire lifetime. Kid, remember, you're just an ant before me. If I wanted to kill you, it would be no different than stepping on an ant. I disdain to kill you. These were the words that the Void Stage expert of the Black Fiend Sect, Sun Rue, said to him. Words that trampled on his dignity. At that time he was only a little bit away from dying at the hands of Sun Rue. That feeling of suffocation was something he couldn't forget for his entire lifetime. Disdain? Traces of rage arose within Duan Lingtian's heart. Chapter 240. A cold light flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes, but Ji Yan and Su Mo didn't notice it. Ji Yan lightly smiled. With Commander Duan's natural talent, it would be easy for you to enter one of the top sects once you arrive at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Exactly. Su Mo nodded as well, then he looked at Duan Lingtian with a serious expression. There are numerous sects in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Once you arrive at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, you must choose one of the 5 great sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. This will have a great impact on your future accomplishments. Duan Lingtian nodded as he thought so as well. The best place to cultivate in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was in the hands of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial family and the 5 great sections. After he found out about this from Xiongquan, he had a plan in his heart to choose one of the 5 great sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and join it. After the meal, the sun had already set. Duan Lingtian's group of 3 stayed at the inn arranged by Lin Yu, and they only departed the next day to return to Aurora City. After spending another 7 days, Duan Lingtian's group of 3 returned to Aurora City. The trip and return, coupled with the 1 day spent in the county city, had spent an entire half a month's time. Prepare, will depart the day after tomorrow. Duan Lingtian set the date of departure. At dawn the next day he brought along Ke and Li Fei and went to the Shao clan to see Luo Qin, the younger sister of Lo Qing, Duan Lingtian's friend from the Iron Blood Army's genius camp. Compared to that day, Luo Qin's complexion was much better, and she had completely integrated into the Shao clan. Duan Lingtian, you're really impressive now. Embroidered Uniform Guards Commander. Xiao Lan and Xiao Yun were together with Luo Qin. Presently Xiao Yun smiled as she looked at Duan Lingtian and blinked her beautiful eyes. Xiao Yun, the daughter of the Shao clan's patriarch. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Subsequently, his gaze descended onto Xiao Lan. Xiao, you asked me to tell you that he's fine. Xiao Lan nodded, and her beautiful eyes seemed to contain a trace of shyness. However, when her gaze inadvertently fell onto the 2 women by Duan Lingtian's side, it became slightly gloomy, and a wisp of imperceptible bitterness suffused the corners of her mouth. I'm here to bid you farewell. After Duan Lingtian explained the purpose of his visit to the 3 women, he casually chatted for a while before leaving with Ke and Li Fei. He naturally noticed Xiao Lan's gaze. He didn't expect that after 2 years Xiao Lan still hadn't let go. Just leave it to fate. Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly. Seeing Duan Lingtian and the other 2 leave, Xiao Lan withdrew her gaze and sighed faintly. He had thought that she would be able to forget him after he left. Who knew that his news would come back again and again, tugging at her heartstrings, causing her to sink into it, unable to extricate herself. However, she also understood. With his current status and identity, he was destined to drift away from her. However, there was always some unwillingness in her heart. Big Sister Lan, there are some things that you have to strive for yourself. Once you miss it, then it'll be too late for regret. Luo Qian knew Xiao Lan's thoughts and couldn't help but advise. Yeah, Big Sister Lan, once you miss a man like Duan Lingtian, there won't be another one. Xiao Yun spoke as well. Xiao Lan's beautiful eyes gradually became firm when she heard the words of the two women. Oh. Duan Lingtian and the two women had just left the Xiao clan estate when he noticed Li Fei's hand descending onto his waist and fiercely spinning, causing him to be unable to refrain from crying out. Little Fei, you're murdering your husband. Who asked you to stare at Xiao Lan until your eyes were fixed on her? Li Fei grunted, and her tone was filled with jealousy. Young master, the way Miss Xiao Lan looks at you is similar to the way Big Sister Fei looks at you. She wouldn't have fallen for you as well, right? Kerr blinked her beautiful eyes as she looked at Duan Lingtian, causing the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth to curl into a bitter smile. When did this little girl Kerr learn how to add fuel to the fire? Look, even little sister Kerr noticed. Li Fei pouted and said, quickly speak, have you fallen for Xiao Lan as well? No, absolutely not. Duan Lingtian hurriedly denied. Admitting it at this time was a typical case of looking for trouble. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and his children returned to the Li family estate. He called Fatty Li Xian, and then invited Lin Zhua and Lin Qi to have a meal together as a farewell. During the meal, he specially introduced Li Xian to Lin Zhua and Lin Qi. Duan Lingtian, after you leave this time, I don't know when we'll meet again. Today we won't leave until we're drunk. Lin Zhua raised his wine cup as he spoke to Duan Lingtian. Not bad, come, cheers. Lin Qi said as well. After a meal, Li Xian and Lin Zhua became familiar with each other. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. When they returned to the Duan clan, Li Xian said sincerely, Boss, thank you. What are you thanking me for? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. Could it be that this fatty noticed something? Li Xian laughed slyly. Boss, I know you specially introduced Lin Zhua and Lin Qi to me. Stop pretending. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. He didn't expect that this fatty would really see through it. The next day, Duan Lingtian's family and Xiong Quan had just left the Li family estate when they saw the three girls waiting at the entrance. Xiao Lan, Xiao Yun and Luo Shi. You guys are? Duan Lingtian noticed that Xiao Lan was carrying a luggage bag in her hand. A bad premonition arose in his heart. Sure enough, Li Fei's burning gaze seemed to be able to ignite Duan Lingtian. Xiao Lan, what are you doing? Duan Lingtian looked at Xiao Lan and asked curiously. Duan Lingtian, I want to go to the Imperial City to find my brother. Can you bring me along? As Xiao Lan spoke, her peerlessly beautiful face was dyed with a wisp of crimson. She was bright and moving, causing others to have the impulse to fiercely kiss her. Li Rose spurred her horse and stood at the side with a trace of a smile on the corners of her mouth. It seemed that her son's charm was quite great. In terms of appearance, this girl wasn't the slightest bit inferior to her two future daughters-in-law. If it was possible, she wouldn't mind having another such beautiful daughter-in-law. Although women were opposed to their husbands having multiple wives and concubines, when it came to their sons, they wished for nothing more than for their sons to be able to enjoy the happiness of having multiple wives. At that time, they would be able to hug their grandsons and granddaughters until their arms went soft. Duan Lingtian was slightly hesitant. Little Feier's gaze was too ruthless. In the end, it was still Li Ro who helped Duan Lingtian out of the predicament. She looked at Xiao Lan and lightly smiled. You're Xiao Lan, right? Li Ro had heard of the three great beauties that were widely rumored in Aurora City. Xiao Lan's gaze descended onto Li Ro and lightly nodded. She was slightly surprised in her heart. This is Duan Lingtian's mother? She looked so young. Seeing that Xiao Lan seemed to be slightly hesitant and seemed to not know how to address her, Li Ro lightly smiled and said, You can call me Aunt Ro like Kerr and Fei. Aunt Ro. Xiao Lan lightly nodded. Her charming face was so red that it seemed as if blood would drip out. Your brother is Tianer's good friend. Since you want to go find your brother, then come with us. Under Li Ro's beckoning, Xiao Lan and Li Ro rode on the same Fergana horse. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, Li Fei spurred her horse to Duan Lingtian's side and glanced at Duan Lingtian with a spurious smile. Scoundrel, are you very happy now? Yes. Duan Lingtian subconsciously replied. When he noticed Li Fei's spurious smile, he hurriedly shook his head. No. The group once again set off on their journey. From Aurora City to the Imperial City they spent another 2 months. Xiaolan, you return to our place first. I'll go find your brother in a while and ask him to come pick you up. After entering the inner city of the Imperial City, Duan Lingtian said to Xiaolan. Xiaolan nodded, and a trace of sadness was emitted from her pair of alluring autumn eyes. Lan come visit Aunt Ro often in the future. Li Ro naturally noticed Xiaolan's sad gaze and lightly smiled as she spoke. Yes, Aunt Ro. Xiaolan's gaze once again lit up. After returning to his own house, Duan Lingtian went to Paladin Academy to find Xiaoyu. When Xiaoyu heard that his sister had come to the Imperial City, he couldn't help but be stunned. Why is she here? Duan Lingtian shrugged. She said she wanted to come find you. Xiaoyu laughed bitterly. Find him? He didn't believe it. However, since his sister had come, he naturally didn't want to trouble Duan Lingtian, so he and Xiao Sun followed Duan Lingtian to Duan Lingtian's house. It was both Xiaoyu and Xiao Sun's first time coming to Duan Lingtian's house. Brother. When Xiaolan saw Xiaoyu, a trace of a charming smile appeared on her face. Xiao Sun, who was following beside Xiaoyu, was completely dumbstruck. This was Xiaoyu's sister? As expected, she was a beauty on the same level as Princess Bai Yao. Very quickly, when Xiao Sun saw Ke and Li Fei walk out from inside, he was once again stunned. When did beautiful women become so worthless? In terms of appearance, the two women that walked out were not the slightest bit inferior to Xiaoyu's sister and Princess Bai Yao. Xiao Sun suddenly felt that he'd probably used up all his chances of seeing beautiful women in his lifetime. When he saw the two women holding onto Duan Lingtian's hands, he knew that they were Duan Lingtian's women. For a moment, only a luster of envy, jealousy, and hatred remained in his eyes. As the saying goes, a friend's wife can't be lured. He hurriedly withdrew his gaze and once again shifted it onto Xiaolan. I won't look at my friend's women, but looking at Xiao Sun's sister should be fine, right? Very quickly he was once again dumbstruck. He noticed that after Xiaolan greeted Xiaoyu, her gaze had always been on Duan Lingtian, as if taking root and sprouting on Duan Lingtian's body. He could only look at Duan Lingtian as well. Duan Lingtian's luck with women was something he couldn't compare to. Xiao Sun. Duan Lingtian didn't know of Xiao Sun's current thoughts. He withdrew a brush and paper and wrote down a pile of materials. Ask your Xiao clan's patriarch to help gather these materials. Give these materials to me 1 month from now, and I'll give you money at that time. 1 month from now was also the day that Duan Lingtian prepared to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. He gave himself a month's time to gather various materials for weapons refinement, medicine refinement, and inscription. No problem. Xiao Sun received the paper that Duan Lingtian passed over and nodded. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.